Her Purrfect Match. Paranormal Dating Agency, Book 3. Written by Millie Taiden. Narrated by Lauren Sweet. One. Relax, Alyssa. Jerry really isn't as bad as you're thinking, Tolly, her coworker, said to her. Alyssa Moran added more sugar to her tepid coffee and winced. She didn't even like that much sugar, but her nerves were all over. Placing the spoon on the plate with a small clink, she moved her hands to her lap. Unable to sit still, she wiped the sweat off her palms on her suit pants. I'm not nervous. Liar. Mrs. Wilder sounded like a lovely person over email. A very strange but nice person. She'd asked some stuff Liz had never been asked before. Ever. I know, Tolly chuckled. Her methods are unconventional, but they work. Look at me. Yeah, look at her. Before Mrs. Wilder had matched Tolly with her 2 men, Liz had sworn Tolly was a man-hater. Nothing good ever came out of her mouth when it came to men, especially if her ex-husband's name was discussed. Then one day she showed up with a glow and a smile. Ever since Liz had seen the change in Tolly, she wondered if maybe she wouldn't have to live the life of a 35-year-old cat lady with an addiction to National Geographic and buying sex toys. Unlike what her mother liked to say, Liz was no prude. She loved sex. She liked it a hell of a lot, but she didn't want to keep doing it with the wrong men. Getting into a relationship with a loser just because he could rock her world didn't make sense anymore. Her last live-in boyfriend had the bad luck syndrome. If he got fired, he blamed his eternal bad luck. She got so tired of it, she'd finally snapped at him and yelled, "No, you dumb fuck. If you don't go to work, you will get fired." And that was the end of that relationship. At least from her end. The moocher had tried to prolong the agony by saying he had nowhere to go, asking her to please give him another chance, that he'd go find a job and make her proud. Then he went and tried to get her ATM card so he could borrow some money. If she was the kind of person who believed in bad luck, she'd think she was destined to be alone. Liz was too positive for that. She knew there was a man out there for her. At this point, she would take him being human, shifter, or dead. Fuck that shit. Sorry I'm late, girls, a woman dressed in an impeccable peach suit said, walking toward them. Mrs. Wilder. Liz stared, open-mouthed, as the older woman winked at the waiter passing by. Traffic was a bitch, but what can you do, right? She stopped next to Tolly, who jumped to her feet and hugged Mrs. Wilder. Lovely to see you, Tolly. Now that I don't live in the same building, I miss you more, Jerry. Mrs. Wilder made a dismissive gesture. Nah, you miss my cakes. That too. Tolly sighed. Mrs. Wilder turned to her, her gaze piercing and filled with interest. You must be Alyssa. She stood at the same time as Tolly, so she offered Mrs. Wilder her hand. Mrs. Wilder? None of that. Jerry. Though your matchmaking highness has a nice ring to it, too. But no, Mrs. Wilder. I'm still very young for that. She pulled Liz's offered hand and gave her a hug. That shocked her. She wasn't used to public displays of affection. Her mother would complain over Liz's choice of perfume or body spray, so she'd never given her hugs, kisses, or kind words in general. It's nice to meet you, Jerry. She waited until everyone sat down again to follow suit. Thanks so much for coming. Tolly grinned. Okay, now that you have some company, I'm going home early. I'll see you tomorrow. Tolly came around the table and gave her a hug. Don't worry, Jerry will take good care of you. If I know her well, I bet she's got someone in mind already. Thanks for sitting with me. Bye, darling. Jerry hugged Tolly as well. Tell my nephew to bring you by tomorrow. I'll make you some of his favorite cake. Tolly hugged Jerry again. I so love you. And your baking. Once Tolly had gone, Jerry ordered some tea and pulled out a notebook. Let's talk. Liz swallowed hard. What about? Why, what you want in a man, of course. Jerry placed her elbow on the table and cupped her chin with her hand, tapping a finger on her cheek. I know you said you wanted a man that likes cats. She nodded quickly. He has to, or at least not be allergic and not be bothered by them. A man who likes pussy, Jerry said as she wrote. Got it. Liz blinked. Then she burst into giggles. Jerry gave her a side smile. You got that, huh? Heck yeah. I definitely need a man who likes, that. You know, Tolly had said you were unique, but wow, I am so glad you decided to help me. Jerry patted her on the hand. I wouldn't turn down a friend of Tolly's. Besides, your letter made me laugh, and that's not something that happens often. She didn't remember what she'd written to make Jerry laugh, but she was glad she had the matchmaker on her side. What else? I'm really sick of trying to be the savior. Fuck that, she said, then slapped a hand over her mouth. Sorry. Jerry laughed. Don't mind me. I have my moments with words that would make you blush. Right. So, men. I'm a big girl, but it seems like most of them I attract want to live off me because, according to some people, I can't get anything better since I'm too big. Who said that nonsense? Jerry asked, her brows dropping in a fierce scowl. My mother, my exes. Don't worry, I don't believe them at all. She didn't. She knew that there were men out there that liked a bigger girl. So what if she had a tummy that was soft, and big hips and thighs? Maybe her ass was larger than most, but all that didn't faze her. She believed in her heart there was a man out there who would like a woman like her. Why? Because there were more women that were big than small, and she knew Tolly was not the only one able to get herself a set of hot men that loved her curves. I'm glad you didn't listen to them. There is someone, or in some cases, a few someones, for everyone. It's just a matter of finding each other. Jerry put her pen down and pinned Liz with a serious stare. You're obviously aware that I don't match women with just any man. They're paranormals, mostly shifters. She might be a hopeless romantic, but she wanted a man to love her like her father had her mother. Except she wouldn't treat him like her mother had her father. Liz wanted to feel that emotional connection with someone and know he cared about her just as much as she did for him. Her hopes that every relationship would progress into the love she wanted was why she'd lasted so long in them, and why she always ended up disappointed. She sighed and stared at Jerry. My mother says I'm a fool, that love doesn't exist, that I should give up on the idea. Don't you dare! Love exists. You just need the right man. I want love, she murmured softly. I want to be wanted for once, not just for the troubles I can fix for a man. I want to be wanted for who I am and what I can give back. I want to be loved. Jerry nodded. And we will get you, love. Liz hadn't found a single man who'd made her believe he truly loved her. Sure, they were good at telling her words they thought she wanted to hear, but the proof was in the pudding. Her exes were selfish, and it would take a man proving with actions, and not words, that he cared. There's another thing, she said. This one is really the main reason why I contacted you. Hit me, Jerry said. She'd probably never get used to how Jerry looked and the stuff she said. It never matched. I want kids. Kids? Jerry looked at her, confused. My biological clock is going to give me a concussion soon from hitting me so hard. I want babies. I need to find someone to be with long-term who wants children." She sighed. "I've wanted a family for so long, it's kind of sad. The men in my past have always said yes, and then turned out to be such losers, I never saw them as father material." "So you want a man who wants a family? Children?" She nodded. "I want a man who wants that as a priority. Marriage, kids, the whole 9 yards. Jerry scrunched her nose in thought and then smiled. "I think I can help you there as well. So you are okay that my male clients are shifters? You know that's the kind of matchmaking business I run." Her hand shook again. She couldn't stop the excitement dancing in her veins. Shifters were hot. Like nuclear bomb explosion in her panties kind of hot. One who wanted babies as much as she did would be perfect. "I know." Actually, she was more than happy to see if she could be a potential mate to one of those sexy men with their alpha personalities. She'd heard they liked to tear panties off. She had a damn big collection and was willing to give them all up if her man wanted to try that. "Great. So you're okay with growls, hisses, and roars during sex?" Jerry made more notes. She cleared her throat and glanced around, thinking of the people in their immediate area, but there were none close enough to hear them. "Do you think you can help me?" Jerry sighed. Shit, maybe she couldn't. "Of course I can. I have a person I'd love for you to meet. Here's the thing. He's not close enough where you can just meet up for dinner. He'll need you to go spend a few days where he lives to see if you are a match." She'd never really traveled. Not because she didn't like it, but she really didn't have anywhere to go, and nobody to go with. An out-of-town date sounded out of the ordinary. What if they hit it off? What if they didn't? It was a game of chance. Her only hope was that if they did, they could figure out how to make it work, without it being a strange, long-distance relationship. That was not her idea of a happy future. "I know going somewhere to meet a man can be a turn-off," Jerry admitted, "especially when you are unsure what you're getting into. I really think this could be good for you." Jerry had been right twice from what Tolly said. Still, Liz didn't know what would be considered casual clothes. She spent her life in either work suits or sweats. There was no middle ground with her. "This is so stupid to say, but I don't know what I'd wear on a date where I'd be gone for more than a day or two." Jerry blinked, confusion clear in her eyes. "What do you mean?" "Are sweats considered to be the kind of stuff you wear on a trip to meet a possible match?" Jerry inhaled sharply. "Oh, honey, don't you ever shop?" "Not if I can help it. I can never find stuff that looks good. I know I'm a big girl, but why do clothes that fit at my hips have to be huge at the waist?" She grumbled. "And I don't have the rack a woman my size should. I feel like I'm missing on top to even out the rest of my body." Jerry shook her head in mock horror. "We must get you new outfits. Not because sweats aren't good attire, but do you really feel sexy in sweats or suits?" Not really. In fact, she felt the least feminine in those things. "Okay, I'm game." She pushed a stray lock of brown hair behind her ear. "I would like to feel sexy." "Then we're going to make you feel like the sexiest woman in the world. And I want you to remember that if the man I match you with turns out to be the right man for you, he will say it. Don't for a second think that he'd lie to you." She nodded. "He'd be my right match if things work out." "No, darling. He's your perfect match." Did she say perfect? She must have heard wrong. "Can you tell me a little about this guy?" Jerry shook her head and motioned for the check. "No, I don't want you to go into this with any preconceived ideas. I'd like for you to get to know him in his, natural habitat." That didn't sound so bad. She'd heard Tolly's cousin had been matched with a bear shifter. What if she got one of those? Did bears like cats? She didn't think so. She bet bears didn't really like much of anything. Maybe she'd get a wolf like Tolly. Those guys were supposed to be wild in bed. She could use some wild in her life. Jerry shooed her hand away when she attempted to make a grab for the check. She paid and stood. "Shall we go?" "Any advice you can give me for this whole date thing?" She worried her bottom lip and grabbed her bag, ready to follow behind Jerry. "Have an open mind. Speak your thoughts. Don't let anyone tell you what to do. And for goodness sakes, be you." Jerry slipped on dark sunglasses over her eyes. They left the restaurant and strolled down the busy street filled with shops. If there is a time to show a man who you are and what you expect, it's at the beginning. Whatever you do or don't allow then is what will follow you through the rest of your relationship. Where had Jerry been when Liz had been with David the loser? She'd spent so many months allowing him to feed her excuses. She'd known he was lying and cheating, but she'd sucked up David's pathetic stories for a number of reasons. For one, because she really didn't want to hear her mother's mouth about another man dumping her. How was it that her mom never believed Liz was the one doing the dumping? "Speaking my mind has never gotten me good results," she muttered. Jerry stopped and glanced at her. She couldn't make out the other woman's expression through the large sunglasses, but her pursed lips spoke volumes. "Listen to me very carefully, Alyssa. The moment you allow anyone to slide with lies, cheating, and treating you poorly, that person will take your kindness for weakness and do it again and again." She never really stopped to think about that. Not that she allowed her exes to really take advantage of her. She'd just given the relationship time, even after she'd known it was going nowhere. "I do tend to stay in relationships, even once I have come to the conclusion it's not going to work." "If it's not working, cut it loose. Your time is valuable. You won't be young forever. Don't waste months or years of your life on someone who's not right, when you could be looking for the one who is," Jerry said. She stopped at a well-known ladies' clothing store and opened the door. "Now let's get you some feel-sexy clothes." 2 hours later, and what she swore was the 50th outfit, Liz was no closer to being done shopping. She left the fitting room in a pair of tight capri pants and a sexy, low-cut, sparkly top. Jerry sat on a chair messing with her phone. She glanced up and beamed. "You look great." Liz turned to stare at herself in the mirror. She didn't have sexy clothes in her closet. Her mother had taught her to be practical at all times. When she was growing up, she tried to hide behind her clothes. Not that she was shy, she just didn't want attention drawn to her body. As an adult, she learned to be herself, to like herself for who she was. But now she had no clue about style. "Do you think it looks okay?" Jerry stood and turned Liz to face her. "Look at me, Alyssa. You're beautiful." She smiled. "Nobody has ever called me that." "Well, you are. Are you looking to keep your hair curled like that, or did we want to go check out a hairdresser and makeup artist as well?" She cleared her throat and winced. "I don't wear makeup." "Ever?" She shook her head. "I wear chapstick. Does that count?" Jerry's eyes widened. "No! We'll have to... Wait, do you even like makeup?" "No," she said, and scrunched her nose. "I don't like feeling stuff on my face. I get itchy, and on the few occasions I've been made up, I forget and start rubbing my eyes and end up looking like a raccoon." "That could be a problem." She snorted. "Tell me about it. I once had to be in a wedding party, and the makeup artist used this great stuff to give me that smoky eye effect. I rubbed one eye during the evening, and I started getting strange looks. When I finally saw my face, my eyeshadow and mascara had run together, and I looked like I had a black eye." Jerry laughed. Oh, you poor thing. The worst part was seeing my friends' wedding photos. I was a mess in all of them. Jerry shook her head. Let's stay away from makeup then. What about your hair? Her shoulders slumped. I have frizzy hair. Nothing anyone does makes it better. There are products that can help tame the curls, Alyssa. Just because your hair is curly doesn't mean it has to look like I got electrocuted. Jerry burst into giggles. Something like that. If you can find me something to keep this hair from looking like dry straw, I will be happy to try it. Taming my curls has been the bane of my existence. Cutting it wouldn't help. It'd just puff up, and I'll end up looking like a giant chia pet. Two. Liz could have sworn she'd gone around that bend before. Shit. She might be slightly off path. Her stupid GPS had lost satellite signal 10 miles back, and now she had no idea where the hell she was. Though she'd always thought she could find her way to anywhere, clearly it was not the case. Great sense of direction, my ass. Where the hell was she? And more importantly, why hadn't she thought to take the handwritten directions Jerry had given her instead of leaving them on her dining room table? Trying to remember didn't seem to work. She was obviously going around in circles. Crack! The sudden slump as her old Camry dropped into a pothole made her wince. Fucking hell! Things just got better and better. Her car swerved, screeching with the force of what must be a flat tire. She pressed down on the brake while trying to control the car before coming to a complete stop. Slapping her hands on the wheel, she growled in frustration and hopped out of the car. This was just not her day. Her blow-dryer decided to die while she tried to dry her mass of super curly hair. It was humid. She now had the world's biggest afro. To make it worse, she'd gotten a ticket trying to leave her apartment building. Apparently telling a cop that she was late for a date wasn't a good enough reason to speed. Following that up with growling wasn't advised either. Bright sunlight blinded her. She glanced around, but recognized nothing. There were no signs on the road, and no businesses nearby. It was official. She was lost. Lost in the deep woods from the looks of things. Awesome! Just fucking awesome! She marched around the front of the car to the passenger side. The tire was torn and flat on the ground. She was stuck. She walked several yards away from the front of her car to see if she noticed anything up the road, but she saw nothing. Could the day get any worse? Loud noises coming from the forest caught her attention. She did a full circle, searching for whatever was out there. The sounds came again, a combination of branches breaking and moving. She peered into the woods and focused on the area she swore the noise came from. Then she heard it. A loud roar. The angry bellow turned her blood to ice. Her heart jumped to her throat. What the hell was that? She blinked and almost missed it. A massive tiger leapt from between the trees, landing so close to her she gasped and took an instinctive step back. Well over 6 feet in length, and with canines that looked to be the size of her entire hand, the animal scared the daylights out of her. Nice kitty! What the hell was she supposed to do? The tiger roared again and took a step closer. His eyes flashed the golden amber color she normally found fascinating on TV. Right at that moment, she found it scary as hell. Didn't the nature shows say you were supposed to stand still when approached by a big cat? She bit her lip, watching the animal scrunch his face as he roared again. Screw standing still. Without taking her gaze off him, she took a step back and whirled around to face her car. Damn it, it was far. Fuck it. It was either run or die. Or both. She didn't think twice and made a break for her car. She never ran, so she hoped those yards wouldn't take her down before she reached the vehicle. Another roar sounded at her back. Oh, shit. She ran faster, but decided to test her fate, half turning to glance over her shoulder. Not a good idea. She tripped on something and went down, landing on her ass. The massive tiger was on her within a heartbeat. She closed her eyes tight, praying to God that the big animal was a vegetarian, but waiting for the first painful bite. "Why did you run?" a loud male voice asked. She jerked her eyes open and glanced past the tiger to a man standing just a few feet back. He was tall with blonde hair and golden brown eyes, almost as yellow as the ones on the tiger. The tiger didn't bother moving away from her, caging her on the ground. "What?" she asked, her gaze straying to the animal. It really was beautiful, even with his big canines on display and the low roaring he continued to do. "I said, why did you run?" That had to be the stupidest question ever. "Big animal, big teeth, big fear." The guy smiled, a row of perfectly white teeth. "You're not supposed to run or they chase. When you stand still, you have more of a chance of not getting attacked." "Right." She rolled her eyes. "Because being chased by a huge-ass tiger is normal for me." She tried, but failed to ignore that the tiger had lowered his big head closer to her. "My instinct to survive said run. I ran. What is he doing?" The tiger took a long whiff and continued to lower his head to her. The guy lifted a brow and watched the animal sniff the air around her. "One of two things." She blinked at the big golden eyes coming closer and closer. "Yeah, is either of those things getting ready to take a bite out of me?" "It's possible." "What?" she screeched. The tiger stopped and licked his lips. Uh-oh, she was dinner. The guy laughed. "Relax. It seems he likes you. He never likes strangers, or human or other tigers." Sounded like the tiger didn't like anybody. "Great. So, could you tell him to move back a little? Enough where I don't have to feel like he's eyeing me for his next meal?" "You're funny." The guy laughed. Sadly, she wasn't joking. "Yeah, I'm a riot." The tiger stepped back enough for the guy to offer a hand so she could stand. But the moment their hands touched, the animal was right there, baring his teeth again. Only this time it was at his master. She wiped her butt and hoped there were no stains on her new clothes. She'd been careful to dress appropriately, with some nice but simple pants and one of the sexy tops Jerry had gotten her to buy. She now knew way too much about what colors combined with each other and why she shouldn't wear black. Apparently, it made her look pale and washed out. "Looks like you need to train him to know who the boss is." She grinned. "Oh, he knows who the boss is," the guy said, and took a step away from her. "I'm Tinder." "I'm Alyssa Moran." She wiped her hands on the sides of her pants. She glanced down and noticed dirt spots on her pants. This wouldn't do for a good first impression. Her date would think she liked to roll around in the dirt. "I had a flat tire and would really appreciate it if you could tell me where the nearest town is, and if you know anyone that I can have fix my car." Tinder glanced at the car a few feet behind her. "Looks bad." She winced. "Yeah, tore the tire right up. I don't really know much about vehicles, so point me in the direction of help, and I'd gladly appreciate it." The tiger decided to push at her side at that moment. She jumped back, still wary of the massive animal. He came closer and nudged her hand with his head. Did the beast want her to pet him? She ran her hand over the top of his head, sliding his fingers deep into his fur. His fur was soft and warm. She did it again, this time scraping her nails on his flesh. The tiger purred. "Could you stop that?" Tinder mumbled, shuffling from foot to foot. Why? He's kinda cute when he's not showing his big teeth. It's weird to watch him being stroked. He coughed. He definitely likes you. She blinked, frowning in confusion. Isn't that better than him wanting to tear me a new asshole? He cocked his head, but said nothing. This guy was so weird. I'll take you to my Pride, and we'll help get your car fixed. She nodded with a smile. That would be so helpful. And her mother said there weren't any nice people in the world. Her car broke down, and she wasn't being abducted or being offered to a god as a sacrifice. Things were starting to look up. Then again, her mother was such a sour apple, she didn't associate with most people. It had taken Liz a long time to get some friends. For most of her youth, her mother discouraged her from hanging out with other kids. Being a big girl didn't help. Her only form of contact with the outside world had been volunteering at the local animal adoption center. There, she'd hugged puppies and kittens. She'd fallen for the sweet, helpless animals. It was there she realized she liked cats. Though solitary, cats could be very loyal. She'd grown up to love cats and had adopted a few of her own the moment she'd moved out. Her cats were the only thing she had. Without a man or children, her hissy kitties took up her time. They gave her the attention she hadn't gotten from her mother or her previous relationships. Tinder smiled and pointed to the woods. I'm happy to help. She decided that she would trust Tinder, not because he had a trusting type of face or personality, but because that tiger of his seemed to have switched sides and was not moving away from her. Instant protector. They walked down a path in the woods, slowly coming up on a jeep. Tinder eyed the tiger that glanced up at her. She wasn't sure what to do, but all of a sudden, her protector took off in a sprint. There went her savior. Don't worry, you'll see him soon enough. She slid into the passenger side, wondering what her date would think of her being so late. At this rate, she wouldn't get there until tomorrow. They rode down a hill to a town. In less than 10 minutes, she was at a mechanic's shop. She glanced around, but the tiger wasn't there. There was a woman by the entrance who stared at her as she neared. Tinder stood next to Liz and introduced her. Kat, this is Alyssa. Kat sniffed. Her brows rose and her gaze snapped to Tinder. Her? I don't make the rules, he said. I follow them. But... No buts, Catherine. Call Stripes to come out here and look at her car. But... Now. Kat huffed and threw Liz a glare before marching off. She tried to keep track of the conversation, but it seemed there was something she missed at some point. Come, he said. I'll take you to meet Gray. And who is that? Our Pride leader. The way he said the other guy's name made her a little wary. Looking around, she noticed that the town was not so large. All the houses or cabins had the same look and feel, as if one person had designed them all. She walked down a few streets until they went up a deserted road. Further in the woods, she finally saw it. A massive cabin sat in the middle of nowhere with no other structures surrounding it. It was as if it had just sprung up between the large trees. Tinder pushed the front door open and waited for her to enter. She glanced around, her vision taking in the wooden furniture, the open space, and the massive windows that brought the outdoors inside. Who are you? She squeaked for the second time that day, slapping a hand to her chest to stop her heart from popping out, and then searching for the owner of the deep, rumbling voice. Who are you? She'd been so taken with the surroundings, she hadn't seen him standing in a corner. Within the shadows. It was hard to make the guy out, but he was big. Like, really big. And she wasn't a small girl, so that made him huge. Her hand flew to her hair, and she patted it to try and tame it. I'm Alyssa Moran. I was on my way to Green Edge when my car broke down. He stepped out of the shadows, and her breath caught in her throat. He was gorgeous. He wasn't even pretty boy gorgeous. He had a rugged look that made her girl parts sigh. With piercing golden eyes that looked eerily familiar, he kept her captivated. The square jaw and that hint of beard made her thoughts scatter in her head. Her past experience with men left her ill-prepared for this hunk of man-meat. She blinked repeatedly in case she'd imagined him. What a joke. She'd never imagined anyone that sinfully delicious before.
"What are you doing here?"
Dear God, that voice. She might just beg him to keep talking. He had a deep, sexy rumble that most men just couldn't achieve. In fact, his whole demeanor said rough and tough. His plain white t-shirt clung to his body like a second skin, showing off the muscles of his arms and abs. She swallowed hard. Then there were the jeans. The button was still undone. Holy crap. It was as if she'd walked in on him getting dressed. She threw Tinder-aside glare. If he'd brought her earlier, she might have gotten to see Gray with fewer clothes on. Now all she could do was imagine what he looked like under those jeans. Would he take his clothes off if she begged? Three. Grayson Green bit back a curse. He didn't know who she was or why she was in his territory, but he wanted her. His tiger wanted her, and she definitely wanted him by the scent drifting off her. She glanced over his body with her beautiful cinnamon brown eyes, her gaze sliding down in a trail of heat. His cock hardened at her perusal of his body. When he'd first seen her standing in the middle of the road, instinct to mate had taken over. He'd had a hell of a time pulling the tiger back enough that he wouldn't tear through her clothes. Her fear had helped keep the animal in check.
"What are you doing here?"
he asked again. If she kept staring at him with such open need, he'd have to ask questions later and take her to bed now. Gray couldn't help doing his own gazing of her luscious body. He'd always liked women with curves he could hold onto. Alyssa had more than enough. Her long, dark hair hung in a long ponytail of curls down her back. Her outfit, though clearly not meant to tempt, did exactly that. A yellow, sparkly tank top displayed a large amount of her golden-brown skin. The plunging neckline gave more than a hint of her breasts, while the cropped jeans clung to her wide hips, showing off the curves he wanted. It was nearing mating season, and the tiger inside him was roaring with need. Alyssa appeared to have shown up as if sent from the gods. Now all he needed to do was figure out what she wanted in his pride. He opened his mouth to speak, only to be interrupted by one of his guards and best friend, Stripes.
"I need to speak with you, Gray."
Stripes rushed forward, stopping only to throw a smile at Alyssa. She frowned and turned to Tinder. His guard had brought her to his home, exactly as he knew Gray wanted.
"Not now, Stripes. I'm busy."
He continued to stare at his future mate. She shifted from foot to foot. Her discomfort was obvious, and he didn't like it.
"That's why I need to talk to you."
"Excuse me," Alyssa broke in. "Could someone just tell me how to get to Green Edge? I sort of have a meeting with someone, and I'm really late."
"Gray."
Stripe started, but stopped when he raised a hand. Gray glanced her way.
"Who are you meeting there?"
She shoved a hand into her pocket and pulled out her cell phone. She pressed a few buttons and glanced up to meet his gaze. Mr. Green?"
"She's here for you,"
Stripes whispered so she wouldn't hear.
"What?"
Gray hissed. It wasn't that he didn't want her. He just didn't understand why Stripes went looking for a woman for him. Gray watched as the largest of his guards shuffled from foot to foot, nervous.
"I signed you up on a matchmaking site,"
he grumbled, quietly under his breath.
You need cubs.
Tinder broke into laughter, but quickly stopped and cleared his throat when Gray glared his way. "Do you think we should go?" she whispered to Tinder. "The big, sexy one is pretty pissed for some reason." This was one of those times Gray thanked his ability to hear even the furthest of sounds due to his sensitive shifter hearing. Tinder choked on his laughter again.
I don't think we should move right now.
Gray glanced at Stripes again.
Explain. Now. You've got to mate. You need someone by mating season, which is only a few days away. I spoke to one of our neighboring bear clans. He mentioned using the paranormal dating agency and being matched with the love of his life. I don't believe in love, he argued in a low voice so his guest wouldn't hear him. But you believe in keeping your pride, Stripes snapped quietly. So you either mate and get some cubs born as soon as possible, or fight to keep the pride for another few months until the next person wants to challenge. How long will you go on that way?
Gray glared at Stripes. From the corner of his eye, he watched Tinder motion for Alyssa to take a seat so she wouldn't have to stand any longer.
But how did you know she was the one?
He asked, confused. Stripes shrugged his massive shoulders like a little kid.
I didn't, but this Mrs. Wilder woman has a great reputation so far. I had a feeling she'd find the right one for you.
Stripes motioned over his shoulder with his head.
And she did. This is crazy. Does she even know what she's getting into? Yes, sort of.
Stripes trailed off.
Mrs. Wilder said she knows she was going on a date with a shifter. I'm not looking for a date with her. I don't even want to mate her, but she's mine. Fine. Good. Hell, great. But you sort of have to convince her of that. She's not here to be turned into your personal sex toy for the mating season. She's here to meet you and get to know you to see if you are a match. She's mine.
Stripes scrubbed a hand over the back of his head.
Do you have any idea how hard it is to date a human? Oh, you don't. Let me fill you in. They are moody and can decide you're being a dick just because you want sex all the time. So tread carefully.
Stripes threw a glance over his shoulder at Alyssa, then gave Gray a pleading look.
Don't mess up your chances by letting your lust and desire to mate push you. Not to mention the need to get her to have cubs as soon as possible, and that never goes over well with any woman. I can handle it.
Stripes shook his head.
No, you can't. You're likely to get straight to the point and piss her off. Have my cubs is not the first thing a woman wants to hear.
A loud rumble sounded in the back of Gray's throat. His tiger didn't like the idea of waiting to mate Alyssa, but he'd do things the right way, whatever the fuck that meant. So if he had to talk to her before stripping her body of those clothes and getting up close and personal with every delicious curve, then he'd do it.
Fine, I'll play this your way. Try to stay within the area,
Stripes said, meeting his gaze.
The word has spread that you have a female here for you. It's only a matter of time before someone tries to stop you from mating. Just let them try.
He glanced at Alyssa. The need to take her grew with every smile she threw his way.
Now take Tinder and get out. I really think one of us should stay. Now,
he hissed under his breath. They'd done a good job of keeping their argument low enough his new guest hadn't known they were debating over her.
I don't need help talking. Yes, you do. You hate people. That's true, but I like her. I like her a lot.
And he really wanted her naked, as soon as possible.
Gray, let us help.
He lifted his lips in a half grin.
You already have. You found my mate. Now let me claim her.
Stripes sighed. He turned his back on Stripes and walked down to the other side of the room where Tinder and Alyssa sat.
Let's go. We'll be summoned to fix shit later. Just watch.
Tinder and Stripes said their goodbyes to Alyssa. She'd watched both men leave and then turned to him, pinning Gray with her soulful brown eyes. Something got your tail in a twist? You sounded pretty angry before.
He stopped mid-stride to her. Did you say I have a tail in a twist? She nodded, her big eyes full of laughter. Her lips curved up in a beautiful smile as she glanced down at his crotch.
I would have said panties, but you don't look like you have anything under those jeans.
He didn't. He realized then she was joking, and he didn't know how to react. Nobody joked with him. His serious and reserved attitude pushed most of his pride away, not to mention he liked his solitary life. Other than making sure nobody bothered his people, he liked peace and being on his own. Are you hungry? Thirsty? He asked, now wishing he'd let Stripes and Tinder stick around. He hadn't spent much time alone with females, unless it was to have an easy night of sex, and when that happened, few words were exchanged. Women in the Pride knew the deal when it came to sex. The need to continue their pride and set up for future leaders was important. Males and females were not as discerning with emotional attachments like humans were. When a female went into heat, she'd look for a single male. Emotions were kept to a minimum. Tigers were sexual creatures. They liked sex a lot, even more when the need to mate and breed took hold. She shook her head and swiped her tongue over her lower lip, causing his gaze to zoom to her mouth and linger there.
I'm fine. So, want to tell me what it was you and your friend there were all hush-hush about?
He cleared his throat. Now he really felt all kinds of weird chatting with her. Women didn't question him. He wasn't sure how to handle her questions without saying something to piss her off. Air. He needed to get her outside. The open space would help clear his mind, and at the same time, allow him to figure out how to talk to a human female. What did one say to a woman other than, take your clothes off? Let's take a walk. You came all this way, and you'll want to see the area. He grabbed her hand to guide her to the door. A jolt of electricity shot down his spine. He met her wide gaze and inhaled hard. She was definitely the one. Even if there had been a doubt before, there was none now. Touching her hand spread a warmth through him that his chilled heart had never felt before.
Am I very far from Greenedge?
She asked as they exited his home through a side entrance. He couldn't stand living in a space too enclosed, so his cabin had lots of large windows and doors, bringing the outside in. You are in Greenedge, he said, holding her hand hostage. She tried to pull out of his grasp, but he found he quite liked how she felt near him. She stopped and frowned.
Then maybe you can tell me where I can find Mr. Green. I bet he'll be pissed I'm late for our date.
That's doubtful, he murmured. She shook her head, her long ponytail of curls bouncing around her back.
No, Mrs. Wilder said he didn't like people making him wait.
She sighed.
I bet I just messed up the first possible date I've had in months. Figures.
He watched her shoulders droop. The idea of her being upset wasn't one that sat well with him. His tiger already wanted to push out of the skin and have her petting him again. The normally antisocial animal was ready to get on his back so she could rub his belly. I'm Grayson Green. She stopped again and swept her gaze from his face down to his bare feet and back up.
You? Why would you sign up for a dating service? You don't look like you need anyone to hook you up.
He grinned. She said the words with such disbelief, it was hard to stop the chuckle past his lips. I don't, under normal circumstances.
Great.
She jerked her hand out of his grasp and slapped them on her hips.
So what? Do you need like a fake girlfriend or something?
Her eyes blazed with anger.
I didn't come here to play games, Mr. Green. You don't sound like you even want a date.
Frickin' hell. He'd been alone with her for about 5 minutes, and he'd already managed to offend her. Stripes was right. He didn't know how to talk to women. Hell,
He didn't know how to talk to most people, unless he was giving them orders.
You don't understand.
He tried to pacify her by grasping her hand again and holding it up to his bare chest.
I'm looking for more, for someone who will be right for me.
Her brows rose slowly with interest. She was so warm, and her skin was so soft. He wanted to touch a lot more of her. More? Like a serious relationship, Mr. Green? Mating was as serious as it got, so yes.
Stop calling me Mr. Green. It's Gray.
Fine. Gray. Are you looking for a serious relationship?
There is only one mate. That is what I need.
She reeled back as if he'd hit her. You need? Crap, he'd fucked it up again.
I mean, that's the only kind I want at this time.
She stared at him quietly for a moment, and then turned to glance at the open forest around them. Why go through Mrs. Wilder, though? I mean, you're hot. You must know that. I bet you don't have a single problem picking up women. She snorted. Or stopping them from throwing themselves at you. Her candor was quite refreshing. She'd called him hot, and he liked it.
Why did you go to Mrs. Wilder?
He followed next to her as they made their way deeper into the woods. With each step further from the restrictions of his pride or the expectations of mating, he loosened up more. He wasn't worried. He could protect her and himself if need be. Apparently I have a bad habit of staying in a relationship that isn't working. Mrs. Wilder said she'd find one that would work for me.
What exactly do you want in this relationship?
They were deep out in the forest now, but he knew his way back with his eyes closed. She glanced at him quickly before turning her face away. The truth? Was there anything else?
Yes.
I want a family. I want love. I want to get married one day. I would like to have children. You know, the stuff most women dream of. I am sick of my own mother calling me an old cat lady. He grinned.
You're not old.
Huh, but I am a cat lady. And for your information, I feel quite old at this point.
Cats are great. I'm glad you like them. Don't give age too much thought.
He liked knowing she wouldn't have problems with his feline.
Old is just a state of mind.
Says the hot young one. She laughed. There she went again. He could tell she wasn't thinking about actively flirting with him. There was no sly smiles or overt sexual pouts. That was new.
You're beautiful. Don't put yourself down.
Four. Liz didn't know what to say. This really gorgeous man she'd never dreamed would need a date was holding her hand and calling her beautiful. Most of her exes weren't bad-looking, but Hunk Man gave them a kick in the balls on the sexiness Richter scale. Hang on a second. She glanced around between the trees, searching for a camera crew. Am I being punked? Because that'd be some real cruel shit, but I wouldn't put it past my mother.
What?
Gray asked. Look, it's not every day that I get a man that looks like you, telling me he is looking for a long-term relationship and thinks I'm beautiful. So yes, I'm questioning it. To be completely honest, I'm wondering if you're high, being real, or joking. His lips lifted in a grin. Lord Almighty, what a smile. His eyes shone with laughter. The previously golden color had sparks of blue in them. They were truly mesmerizing. Why would a man this handsome and clearly in touch with his sexiness go to a dating agency? The women in that town were either blind or stupid. She had the urge to fidget and glance down at her clothes. Did she look okay? Thank God Jerry had taken her shopping. She doubted he'd be saying she was beautiful if he saw her in a pair of too big sweats, bedhead, and surrounded by cats. Christ, the image alone scared the shit out of her.
First, I am not high. There is no drug out there that could do a thing for me. Second, I don't think you understand. You are beautiful, and I am looking for a long-term relationship," he said. "But I'll tell you something. If anyone thinks calling you beautiful is a good way to joke, then they don't see what I see." She cleared her throat at the quick change of his voice. He'd gone from sexy and flirty to deadpan and serious. "And what's that?" "A woman who doesn't need the trappings of war paint and too tight outfits to display how beautiful she is, inside and out."
"Oh, wow. War paint?" He frowned.
"You women call it makeup."
A slow smile crept over her lips, and a giddy sensation of excitement buzzed in her veins. He moved forward, crowding her with the heat of his large body. Oh boy. She didn't move for fear she'd blink and he'd disappear. He slid his hands up her arms, grasping her by the shoulders, and tugged her close. So close there wasn't an inch of space between their bodies. She licked her dry lips again. Heck, her entire throat had turned to sandpaper.
"You keep doing that, and I won't be held accountable for my actions,"
he murmured, his voice low and deep. "Doing what?" she asked, staring at the fuzz of facial hair she wanted to rake her nails over. She'd never been one to like men with beards, but that short hint of one on Gray was making her insane.
"Licking your lips."
He slowly lowered his head toward hers.
"It's like an invitation for me to kiss you."
Was it? She never had that response before. Maybe now was a good time to find out what kind of chemistry they had. It was one thing for her to think he was hot, but quite another for him to make her panties wet. Okay, wetter. The man was a sight with that tattooed body and short blonde hair, begging for her to grip. "Do it," she said boldly, not believing for a second he'd follow through. "Kiss me." Much to her surprise, he did. He dropped his head until his lips brushed softly over hers. Once, twice, and then she lost patience and gripped the front of his t-shirt, yanking him closer to mesh their lips in a passionate kiss. His tongue slid into her mouth and dominated. With each swipe over hers, he heightened the passion flaring in her blood. He glided his hands up to cup her face at first. Then he slid them around the back of her head and tugged the ribbon holding her hair up to let the long, thick strands tumble free. She moaned into the kiss. Christ, he was so good with that tongue, rubbing and grazing it back and forth over hers. Her nipples puckered tight under her top. They ached with an intensity she'd never felt before. All her muscles locked into place. It was like none of the kisses she'd ever been given had been real. Nothing compared to Gray's lips pressing over hers, to his tongue fondling hers, to his hands gripping her hair, and to, oh dear God, the hard bar of his cock rubbing on her belly. Lust pooled at her core and heated her from the inside like a forest fire. Need grew in her for the man doing with a single kiss what others could not do with months of sex. She moaned. He grunted and moved his hands down her neck to cup her breasts over her shirt. Hot shudders raced down her spine to her clit. A new throbbing took hold of her pussy. She wanted this big, sexy guy naked. Now. He fondled her breasts, massaging and tweaking her nipples. With every squeeze, her pussy fluttered. Her panties had gone past damp to soaked. She pulled away from him, just enough to catch her breath and look into his bright, golden eyes. The need and lust she saw there made her shiver. "I want you," he said, his voice firm, low and rough. Those had been the best words any man had ever said to her, not because she'd never been told she was wanted before. She had. But because he said it in such a way, she knew it was true. He said it as if it was killing him to not be inside her, and by God, that made the words all the more special. She didn't get a chance to say anything. Her words died in her throat. His gaze jerked up from her face, and his features turned feral, animalistic, and angry. The warmth inside her died a sudden death and was replaced with icy fear. He turned around, pushing her behind him until she was pressed between him and a tree. Loud roaring sounded all around her. She tried to peek over Gray, but it was hard since he was so damn big. She was, however, able to listen to the conversation without any problems.
"Leave."
Gray's voice was loud and harsh. She finally got around his arm enough to see 2 tall men standing several yards away.
"We've come to speak with you,"
one guy said. He glanced down and caught sight of her. He frowned, his face twisting in anger.
"You've got no mate. A pride leader needs cubs to ensure his line."
She didn't really understand what all that meant, but Gray clearly did. His muscles tensed, almost shaking.
"My mate is none of your concern, Lucas. Why are you and Eli really here?"
Great, now she knew the guys' names. The bigger, staring daggers at her, was Lucas, and the shorter, not as evil-looking, was Eli.
"There's been talk."
Eli glanced at Lucas, shifting from foot to foot.
"Some are saying you won't be leader for long." "We need to know what you will do about the mate problem,"
Lucas said, his gaze never wavering from Liz.
"Or do you plan to fight to keep your place?" "Again, not your business. You are overstepping, and you both know what happens when anyone questions me."
He didn't yell the words, but the effect was instant. The 2 men took hasty steps back and eyed each other.
"You have 30 seconds to go before I decide you've come here to fight me yourselves."
Eli was first to rush back, tugging a hesitant Lucas with him.
"We'll go," said Lucas, "but this doesn't change anything. Others will come. You can't be leader without a mate."
Liz swallowed at the fear clogging her throat. She gripped Gray's t-shirt so hard in her fists, her knuckles had gone white. They stood there a few minutes, until she felt his muscles loosen.
"Let's go back,"
he said, and turned to face her. His eyes were filled with anger.
"I don't think you should be out here right now in case they decide to come back."
She frowned. This pride of his sounded like some nasty neighbors. "They do something to you?" He shook his head.
"Not me, but they try to get to you. They've seen you."
She allowed him to hold her hand on their way back to his cabin. This time, the walk was silent and filled with unease. She finally spoke when they reached the kitchen. "Is that my overnight bag?" she asked, glancing at what looked like her luggage.
"Yes, Stripes or Tinder brought it up for your comfort."
She raised her brows and glanced at him. "But I'm supposed to stay at some guest cabin."
"No, I want you here."
Okay, except she wasn't used to being in any man's home on a first date. It was a little strange. What if she woke up in the middle of the night and decided to climb into his bed and get her freak on? Would he object?
"You can have your own room,"
he said softly, his gaze dropping down to her lips. Butterflies and all kinds of fluttering sensations took hold of her chest.
"If that's what you wish."
Wish? Wish? She wished she could get him out of his clothes ASAP, but that wasn't happening, now was it? "Thank you." He picked up her bag and led her up to the second floor. She should have paid more attention to the surroundings, but his slap-worthy ass was all she could focus on. The entire way to the guest room, all she did was debate on biting or wanting to dig her nails into his cheeks. She had problems. The room he showed her was a nice, clean one with the bare necessities. She stopped in the middle of the room and glanced around, I guess you don't get many guests, do you? He put her bag on a chair and turned to face her.
No, I like my space.
So who were those guys, and what did they mean that you need a mate? She had been dying to ask, but her stupid hormones had almost made her forget on the way up to the guest room. He leaned back on the open entry.
We're tigers. We need to mate.
She blinked. You're a what? He frowned.
A tiger. Didn't you know?
No, she said, growing confused. Mrs. Wilder never said what you were. I assumed. His brows rose with interest.
You assumed?
Shit. She'd been so stupid. Mrs. Wilder didn't tell her what kind of shifter because she didn't want her to have any preconceived notions. Liz knew better than to assume anything, but she'd seen Tolly with her 2 wolves, and she'd sort of thought she'd get a wolf too. I thought you'd be a wolf.
Like hell.
She winced. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have assumed. It's just that a coworker of mine used the PDA and got a pair of wolves. I wasn't sure what I would get, but I kind of expected a wolf for some reason. His brows darted down in a fierce scowl.
I see. I'll leave you to unpack.
She held her breath as he turned on his heel and left her room. Fuck. She'd done a great job of insulting the tiger. Well, Jerry had given her a cat all right. A big-ass cat. And just like her cats at home, this one didn't like being compared to a puppy. She marched to her overnight case and opened it. The first thing she noticed was her bag of sex toys. She couldn't have known if they'd have any chemistry, and she wasn't going to leave home without them. Now all she wanted was for him to use some of her favorites on her. Fuck. Guilt crept up her throat. She had to apologize. He looked so surprised, and then disappointed over her words. It made her feel awful to have hurt his feelings somehow. She left the bedroom and listened for the sound of footsteps. His cabin was well built. The wood was strong and blended with the colors of autumn from the outside. A few doors down from her room, she stopped. She must have reached his bedroom. He'd left the door ajar, and she heard his footsteps inside. Inhaling some courage she wasn't sure she possessed, she pushed the door open. I'm sorry, Gray, Oh, dear God. Five. Liz blinked, then blinked again. He was naked. Like, so naked there wasn't even shoes on him to detract from the powerful muscles and amazing tattoos covering his back and arms. She'd been right. He had an ass she definitely wanted to bite and slap. He turned to face her slowly. If possible, his front was even better to look at. She didn't even attempt not glancing at his cock. Her brain short-circuited when she did. Her gaze shot up to meet his with a gasp. He was big. He was hard. He was ready. I'm sorry for barging in. She cleared her throat. How did you get naked so fast? She blurted out. His lips lifted into another of those panty-melting smiles.
We tend to be naked a lot.
Oh. Her gaze strayed down to his cock again. She curled fingers into her palms, squeezing them into fists. I'll go.
Don't.
He broke in and slowly prowled toward her.
Don't go.
Shit. What to do? She really should get out of his room and leave him to do whatever he'd been doing. Her dirty mind turned vivid with images of him stroking himself. Nope, not the thing to be imagining right now. He inhaled and groaned.
I don't know if you understand, but I've been hard from the moment I laid eyes on you.
Jesus, maybe she could stay a few minutes. Or hours. He came closer. His lightly tanned skin, covered in tattoos, called her attention. The blue and black lines of his ink captivated her.
"Do you want to know what I was about to do in here?"
He taunted her with his soft words. She shook her head jerkily. No, she didn't want to know. She wanted to watch him do it. He stopped just a hair's breadth away and lifted a hand to cup her cheek, sliding his thumb over her bottom lip.
"I was going to imagine those full lips of yours wrapped around my cock."
This was better than anything her mind could have conjured up. Way better and hotter. He grabbed her fingers with his other hand and brought them down to his abs, placing her hand flat. Air pounded in and out of her lungs as she slipped her fingers down his navel to his straining erection. His eyes held her captive, the gold and blue bright with arousal.
"I can't stop thinking of you naked," he breathed.
She reached his long, thick shaft and gulped. "Just naked?" He glanced at her lips, his chest rising and falling with every hard breath.
"Naked, on my bed, spread open for me to feast on."
He licked his lips.
"I can already taste how sweet your pretty pussy will be. I know you're wet. I want to lick your pussy and drive my tongue and cock into your cunt. Deep, so deep you'll never want me out of your body."
Holy hell. If the words were anything to go by, she'd done the right thing staying there. She watched his facial lines tighten. The knowledge that he was so close to losing his control sparked an evil need to push him inside her. Curling her hand over his hot length, she grazed her nails from his balls up to the head of his cock. Then she slid a thumb over the slit, spreading the bead of moisture at the tip. "Put the words in action, Tiger Man." He moved faster than she expected. 1 second they were standing there, and the next his lips were on hers, kissing her like the zombie apocalypse had started. He tugged at her clothes, ripping and tearing. Not that she had half a mind to give a fuck. So what if the clothes were new? She'd spend hours in shopping hell to buy outfits with the hopes he'd like them. Tearing them off her sure qualified as a liking in her book. She lifted her arms for her top to come off and shimmied out of her pants when he yanked them down. The usual insecurity of being naked with a new man tried to push forth. God, this wasn't just any new man. This guy was the epitome of tall, dark, and make my eyes water sexy. She had long ago learned to live with the body she had. She might not be the sexiest dresser or the best at wearing stuff to entice men, but she was fine with being a big girl, a really big girl. Except now, right now, all she wanted to do was glance down at her body and see what he saw. Did he see the rolls in the 2 small breasts for her size? Was he turned off by the fact her thighs might be bigger than most women? She hoped he liked ass, because she had quite a big one back there. With a deep breath, she met his gaze, and all those questions were sent to hell. His look stopped any feelings of discomfort with being so curvy dead on their tracks. He'd pulled her pants and shoes off her feet and glanced up. The lust she saw there filled her with a new sense of excitement. He definitely wanted her. She gasped and groaned as he slid his finger up her legs when he stood. Each glide of his digits on her flesh felt like ribbons of fire stroking her. She opened her mouth, but he shook his head. His gaze swept her from head to feet and back up, stopping at her lips.
"I was right. You're beautiful."
It was her at that point who lost control. She curled her arms around his neck and pulled his head down, pressing her mouth to his. He caressed his tongue over hers, decadently rubbing her and fanning the flames lighting her core. There was a new tug, and her bra came off. The hiss of a tear, and her panties were gone. and she loved it. He picked her up as if she weighed nothing but a feather, which only made her want him even more. In a few steps, they were on the bed. The plush comforter warmed her back, while he sat back on his heels and glanced at her naked body. "Gray?" "Shh, darling." He pushed her legs open and stroked her pussy with a finger, sliding it up and down her slick lips. "I told you you'd be wet." She could hardly hear past the sound of her heavy breathing. Gripping clumps of the comforter in her fists, she waited for him to make a move. "That's such a gorgeous sight." His voice was low and deep. He pushed her thighs wider and got on his belly. Oh, this was going to be much better than she expected. He inhaled and groaned. "I can sense how much you want me." "I do," she murmured. "I want you." His eyes flashed that golden color she loved. "I want to fuck you." He pressed his finger over her clit in lazy circles that pushed her breathing into the heart attack zone. "I want my cock coked in your pussy juices." He lowered his head, his gaze still locked on hers, and swiped his tongue over her folds. "I knew you'd be sweet." "Lord Jesus," she groaned, her eyes wanting to shut and her body begging for more. "Oh, please." "I like the sound of you asking me to do more." He did another lick from her ass to her clit again, and then rained small bites on her inner thigh. "Do you know how hard it is not to slide my cock into your slick, hot pussy and fill you with my cum?" No, she didn't, but she wanted that just as badly as he did. "Don't hold back," she panted. "Do it." Another slide of his tongue over her clit, and she saw stars. She moaned and pressed her pussy closer to his mouth. "My dick hurts from how much I want you. I want to watch my cock slide into your pussy and come out wet with your scent." He flicked his tongue over her clit and slid his finger into her channel, slowly fucking her with it. Oh God," she groaned. Hot and cold sensations rushed her body. Her mind focused solely on the lips and tongue sucking her clit, and the fingers invading her body and pushing her to orgasm. Her lips spread against his head, but he curled his arms around her large thighs and urged her to lay them over his muscled shoulders. Another suck and a lick, and her pussy squeezed around his fingers. "Fuck," he grunted, his lips barely above her mound. "You're hot and wet. So fucking sexy." Her muscles shook from how hard it was to hang on. She couldn't think, breathe, or do much more than lay there and feel, and it felt fucking amazing. He added a third finger gliding into her pussy, and something pressed into her asshole. She inhaled it and let it out slowly, allowing her body to relax so his fingers could get in her. "That's it, beautiful," he breathed from between her legs. "Let me fuck your pussy and ass with my fingers, because soon it'll be my dick in your pussy. Soon, gorgeous, it will be my cock in your tight ass." Her body bucked at the dual penetration of his fingers in her pussy and ass. "Gray!" Tension swirled into a ball of explosives in her belly. Her chest felt compressed, and she couldn't get enough air into her lungs. She let go of the comforter and gripped his blonde hair in her fists, wiggling and rocking her hips over his lips. The fire inside grew in intensity. She was so close. The promise of an orgasm threw her into single-minded focus. She had to come. He sucked her clit harder, plunging his fingers in and out of her in a faster speed with each lick. She moaned loud, not caring about being quiet. Fuck who heard her. His head lifted, and she glanced at him from lowered lids, her chest heaving while she struggled for breaths.
Come for me, beautiful. He nibbled her clit, his fingers driving in and out faster than she could catch a breath. He splayed his tongue flat on her pussy, pressing on her clit, and then sucking it between his lips. "Oh," she gasped. "Oh, my." The world shattered then and there. She screamed, her body unraveling and letting go so fast she could do nothing but let it happen. A massive wave of pleasure rushed her. Her bones liquefied, and her ability to breathe stopped. Shock waves of bliss spread through her body, down to the smallest cell. She blinked her eyes open and glanced down. Her legs shook, and her belly still quivered. Gray was on all fours, licking his lips. "I love how sweet your pussy tastes, but now I want to feel it stroking my dick as I slide into you." Her desire shot right back up. She was dying for him to take her, to slide into her body and give her a new taste of the amazing release she just had. She widened her legs, pulling her knees up to allow him more access to her body. "I like that," he said, his lips lifting into a sinful grin. "You do have a pretty pussy. It's so pink and wet." He glanced up and met her gaze. "Ready to be fucked." Oh yeah, she was ready, willing, and desperate. She reached for him, but he shook his head. "Not yet." Instead, he lowered and kissed her belly, licking his way up to the valley of her breasts. Then he sucked one of her nipples between his lips, the heat of his mouth enveloping her breast. Oh my God! Her mind turned to baby food. His powerful legs rubbed the inside of her thighs. Her breath caught in her chest. His lips were driving her wild. His nips and sucks on her nipple were like electric currents between her breast and clit. She'd never known such exquisite torture. He released her nipple and continued his licking journey up to her lips, the head of his cock pressed at her slick entrance. Steely hard and silky smooth, he slipped easily between her drenched folds. She gasped, her gaze locked on his. He clenched his jaw, the vein on the side of his cheek popped to show the hard time he was having, taking it slow. He pressed forward, his cock sliding into her in a drawn-out slide. "Fuck, Alyssa, you really are tight." He said that like it was a bad thing. It wasn't her fault he was big, and her previous men had been, well, smaller. She gripped his slick shoulders, digging her nails into his sweaty flesh and pushing a breath out. "You're taking too long." Curling her legs around his hips, she used the balls of her feet to press at his ass and push him forward faster. The movement worked, but she hadn't expected the burning of his cock stretching her pussy walls and filling her until she felt invaded by him. "Christ," he rumbled and blinked his golden eyes down at her. "Your body is soft, tight, perfect for me to fuck." "Do it, Gray. Do me hard." "I want to fill you with my scent, sweet Alyssa," he breathed. "I want to come deep inside you, to mark you as mine." She might not understand his words, but she knew one thing. She wanted whatever he wanted to give her. "Do whatever you want. Just do it already." "Do you want me to come inside you?" "Yes. Fuck me and fill me with your cum." Where were these words coming from? She liked dirty talking as much as the next person, but that right there was unlike her. A feral smile split his lips. "I'll do just that. I'll fuck your sweet cunt so hard you'll never forget how good we are together." She raised her head and met his lips with hers. The kiss was not soft or sweet. It was rough mating of mouths with groaning, moaning, and biting. He pulled back, almost sliding out of her, and then pushed forward. She whimpered. His drives didn't slow or stop. Neither did the kiss.
Their tongues tangled at the same time his cock drove deep and retreated. In, out, harder, faster. Blazing arousal pumped her blood straight to her head. Sex had never been this untamed. She'd had sex for enough years of her life, thus she considered herself well prepared for anything. Not this time. But his rough fucking only opened something wild inside her, too. A new need to let go filled her. She scored her nails down his sides. When she reached his ass, she squeezed and dug them into his meaty flesh. "Yes," she moaned. "Fuck me hard." Loud grunts and hard breathing filled the room, along with the sounds of skin slapping. She couldn't think of a time when she'd ever been so turned on by it. She pushed on her side, pressing an elbow into the mattress, and turned them so he could be on the bed and she on top. He broke their kiss, grabbed her by the waist, and pushed her to a sitting position.
"Feel like riding, do you?"
They were still connected. He was fully embedded deep inside her. She couldn't believe how fucking sexy it was to look down at him while sitting on his cock. She licked her lips and rocked. The new position hit somewhere sensitive in her pussy. She groaned, dropped her arms to his chest, and rocked. Again, her body got the flutters of an impending orgasm, so fast it left her breathless.
"Oh, baby,"
Gray groaned.
"You need to keep moving, or you'll find yourself flat on your back again. And next time I won't stop until your pussy's dripping with my cum."
"Gray," she moaned, "you feel so good inside me." She leaned down and licked his lips. Where was this sudden urge to be bold coming from? She didn't know, but right then, she didn't give a shit. She liked watching desire tighten his features.
"I think you feel better sucking my cock with your pussy."
His hand slid up to her tits, and he squeezed them, thumbing her nipples back and forth.
"That's it, baby,"
he said, his voice rough with need.
"Ride me, slide on my dick, enfold my cock with your silkiness."
Christ, she'd only been on him for all of a minute, and his words pushed her closer to orgasm faster than any of her vibrators. She rolled her hips, gasping and whimpering at how good it felt to have him hot and stiff, stroking her insides.
"Ride me harder,"
he breathed, tugging her head down to kiss her. He sucked on her bottom lip, nibbling and swiping his tongue in and out of her mouth in a dirty and sensual mating ritual. He curled a hand around her neck, grasping her long hair and pulling her closer to him, while he slid his other hand between her legs and played with her clit. He continued biting and sucking her lips and jaw. Her stomach flipped with the intense look of desire he gave her.
"Your pussy rocking on my dick feels fucking amazing."
He gripped her hair tighter, lifting his ass to spread kisses up to her ear.
"But your ass, that tight little hole driving me crazy, is just waiting for me to fuck it."
He licked her lobe, and a shudder raced down her spine. "God, yes."
"I'm going to drive deep in your ass,"
he said, his breaths heavy. He fondled her clit, flicking his thumb on her hard little nub.
"I can't wait. First, I'm going to lick all around that little asshole."
He groaned and swiped his tongue on her cheek.
"Then I'll flick my tongue over your entire entrance like I'm doing now with my finger."
Her movements grew shaky with the tension growing inside her. "Please."
"Please what? Please shove my cock so far up your ass you won't be able to do anything but take it? Please fill your tight little ass with my cum until it comes sliding out of your hole? Or please rub harder on your clit?"
he said, pressing a kiss to her dry lips.
"Which is it?"
"Make me come. I can't."
"You can,"
he urged, moving the hand on her hair to her waist and lifting his hips off the bed to meet her downward strides with an upward thrust.
You're going to come for me, beautiful. My dick can't wait to feel your pussy walls quivering when you do.
She gasped, locking her gaze with his. A silent communication happened then. Air fought its way in and out of her lungs in a rush. She was so close. Digging her nails into his abs, she increased the speed of her rocking. At the same time, he flicked harder on her clit. Then everything ceased, and a blast of color flashed before her eyes. Her body tensed and then let go. Tension unraveled in a rush. Pleasure filled her, seeping down to the bone. A scream tore from her throat, leaving her gasping for air. He moved his hands a little lower, down to her hips, his fingers biting deep into her flesh. Gray lifted and dropped her, prolonging the orgasm she experienced. He threw his head back, the veins on his neck popping with exertion. A loud roar sounded from him, and then he was driving his cock so far into her she was left speechless. His body vibrated under her. He pulsed inside her, filling her with his cum.
"That's it,"
he muttered, rocking into her.
"You're so fucking sexy, Alyssa. Your pussy keeps sucking my cock."
She could still feel her insides quivering from her orgasm. She shivered as the last of his cum filled her. She inhaled and let it out in a quick breath. "Wow."
"Next time I'll make it even better."
He pulled her head down for a quick kiss. Heat emanated from him in waves. She sighed and leaned down to lay on him, snuggling into the curve of his neck. "You do that, and I'll end up dead."
"You won't die from great sex."
"We don't know that. I've never had sex this good," she admitted. Why lie when it would only make her look ridiculous? She listened to his heart beating harsh against her ear. They were both sticky and sweaty. She could think of nothing better to do but lay there.
"There are things we need to discuss,"
he said after a moment of silence. Great. The morning after talk. And it wasn't even the morning after. "Like?" She tried to keep her voice light, but she hadn't come this far to have sex and leave. The whole point of the PDA was to match her up with the right man. Sexually, Gray was perfect for her. In every other aspect, she had no frickin' clue. They'd spent all of a few hours together before she let her hormones do their own version of Girls Gone Wild. They hadn't used protection, and she didn't care. In fact, she sort of wished something bigger would develop between them. Trust her body to decide that the first man she meets who has some potential is now to be the father of her future offspring. If only he knew where her thoughts had gone, he'd jump off that bed so quickly she'd never see it happen.
"We didn't use anything to stop conception,"
he said. "Ah, the baby conversation. I want to tell you not to worry, but the truth is, I am not on birth control, and I haven't been with anyone in a while, so there's been no reason to use any." She lifted her head and met his gaze. "This took me by surprise." He pressed her head back on his chest and caressed her hair.
"Me too. I've never reacted so quickly to any female."
She shouldn't be happy he said that, but she was. He wanted her, and he'd lost control over her. Her, Alyssa Moran, dowdy law office assistant with too many curves to count. The feminine side of her squealed and high-fived itself. The rational side of her tried to tell her this was just the beginning, to not get her hopes up. Too late. What do we do? 6. Gray listened to Alyssa's question, unsure what to say. He didn't want to scare her by saying, "I hope you're pregnant so I can kick the nonsense about losing my pride in the ass."
"We'll wait. It could be nothing."
She sighed, her body losing some of the tension she'd gotten when he said they had to talk. "Are you ever going to tell me what those guys were talking about? You need a mate and your pride and all that?" Great. That was exactly what he didn't want to talk about.
"What do you want to know?"
Sliding his fingers through her hair, he was able to keep the tiger calm. He had to open up to her, or things between them would never work. Opening up to anyone was not something he was familiar with. It was something he never did. "Tell me what that means, the things they said." He sighed and thought back to his father. He'd warned him that his reluctance to find a mate and bear cubs would be his downfall. The previous pride leader of Green Edge had been old and wise. Too bad Gray had decided to ignore his suggestions and continue things the way he wanted.
"My tiger pride has a hierarchy. I am the pride leader,"
he said, reminding himself that he never allowed anyone to bully him into making any decision. He was his own man, and he'd be damned if he mated anyone just to keep his pride. He'd fight for it, but he wouldn't do that to Alyssa. He wanted her for purely selfish reasons. He wanted her for himself. "So if you're the leader, then you're fine, right?" There was a hint of worry in her voice. He hugged her closer, enjoying her naked curves laying on him. The breeze drifting through the windows helped cool their heated bodies.
"More or less. They're pressuring me to mate."
She was quiet for a moment. "What do you mean, mate? I haven't gotten all the terminology down of your kind. Does that mean, like, marriage?" He pressed a kiss to the top of her head and caught himself. When had he ever done that before? Never. But already he acted as though she were his mate, as though there was nothing between them but time to develop the relationship.
"Yes, something like that. If I don't produce cubs soon, I will be seen as weak and unable to lead the pride. Some of the females offered to bear my cubs, but I don't like being pressured into anything."
She jerked in his arms, her head rising quickly, and her wide gaze meeting his with open shock. "They offered to just have your babies? Just like that? No commitment expected?" She sat up, grabbing the sheet dangling from the foot of the bed and wrapping her naked body with it. He disliked the lack of view of her curves and disliked even more that she'd moved away. He didn't think, just acted. Grabbing hold of the sheet, he tugged her back on the bed next to him. He unraveled the material until she was once again flush against him, with the sheet covering both of them. "So?" She leaned her head on his arm and stared expectantly at him. "They just offered to have your babies, no questions asked?" He sighed.
"That's the way of the pride. Many leaders have cubs with as many females as they want. It ensures that they'll have multiple future leaders."
Her lips pressed into a tight line. "I've never heard of a woman doing that."
"Like I said, it's the way of prides. Only I didn't want to be forced into mating or having cubs to keep being leader. I was born to lead. I'll fight to keep my place."
She gasped, her eyes filled with horror. "Would it really go to that? Fighting?" He nodded, not willing to lie to her.
"Yes, it will. It's only a matter of time."
Her tense muscles and the fear drifting from her body told him it was time to change the subject.
"What about you? Why did you choose to use a paranormal dating agency to find someone?"
"Well, I've dated every jerk known to man, and I figured, why not date every jerk known to the paranormal, too?" She laughed. "Not really. I'd heard great things about Mrs. Wilder. She's a very hands-on type of matchmaker, and she does great things, from what Tolly, my coworker, said."
"You've been in other relationships before. What happened?"
He felt her loosen up. He knew she'd soon be asleep, but he still wanted to hear more about her life. Plus, he loved listening to her speak. She had a huskiness to her tone that made his cock jerk. She yawned and ran her nails up and down his chest. It was an innocent move, but the intimacy of it hit him hard in the gut. This felt right. She felt right. I tend to give too many chances, even when I know I shouldn't. I have a hard time breaking it off with men. I guess they take my kindness for weakness and decide to cling to me however long they can. He picked up a long curl and stared at the multiple shades of brown in her hair.
So what do you want now?
She yawned again, her hand stopping to lay on his chest. Love. I want to be loved. He didn't ask any further questions and lay there, listening to her sleep. She wanted love. He didn't believe in it. How could they ever make it work? For much of his life, his parents had been cold people, dedicated to the pride. His father had instilled in him the need to protect and care for the pride. His family had stopped living when his younger brother had been killed. The death had sparked a divide in the pride. Someone had known the leader would pass his rule to one of his children, and they tried to get rid of them. No attempts had been made on Gray, but his brother didn't have the same luck. The younger tiger had been cocky and believed he could do whatever he wanted without consequences. Then one day, he was found dead. Gray, already a loner at the time, grew even more antisocial. The females in the pride had tried getting his attention, but he'd focused on the overall care of business and command. Once his father had gone, Gray fought others for the prime leader position. Just because he was his father's son didn't mean it was automatic in his world. But he destroyed his opponents, and now had to try and figure out how to keep his pride. Frustration reared its ugly head. He hated being put in a position to fight for what he'd already obtained. The pride was his. Gray stood in his kitchen in a pair of boxers, fixing dinner for Alyssa. She'd wake up soon, and he knew she'd be starved. Hell, he was. Someone knocked at the back door before it swung open. Stripes walked in. He glanced around, and then headed straight for the refrigerator.
I see you're still alive.
Gray shook his head. His guard was as much a talker as he was.
I am. Did you talk to her about mating? Giving you some cubs, and maybe getting some of these assholes off our backs?
Stripes asked, holding a can of soda in his hand and popping it open with the flick of a finger. He shook his head, closed the lids on the food he'd prepared, and moved around to make some coffee.
No, I won't put that kind of pressure on her. She didn't come here for that.
Stripes groaned, sat down at the dining table, and glared at him.
Why do you think I signed you up for the whole matchmaking site? It's not for your good looks and personality.
Gray's lips quirked. Stripes was a hard-ass, but he knew firsthand that his best guard would not put a human in the line of fire, especially not Gray's mate.
I think Alyssa would disagree with you. I have amazing skills. She just screamed it to the world about an hour ago.
Stripes held the can by his lips and shook his head.
Thanks. I really needed that. It's not enough my sister is ready to drop her pants like you're a sexpert or something. Now I have to hear about your success with someone you met only a few hours ago?
Hearing Stripes say it like that didn't sit well with him. He had met Alyssa about 6 hours back, but there was something there. She was his mate. They had a connection.
She's not just someone. She's mine.
Stripes sighed.
Yeah, okay. I get it. So what will we do?
His mind had gone distant, thinking about Alyssa naked in his bed.
About? Lucas, Eli, and others trying to push you out.
There was not much to do. He could wait it out and prepare for an attack, or he could do what was usually done and find himself someone to bear him some cubs. Ideally his mate. Rage heated his blood to boiling.
We'll wait. If they want to fight, they'll get a fight.
Stripes stood, dropped the empty soda can in the recycling bin, and stopped at the kitchen door. He turned to glance at Gray.
I'm glad my signing you up for the PDA got your mate.
Gray folded his arms over his chest.
I'm glad to. I don't like the idea of her being around here, but I don't want her far either.
He clenched his teeth, biting back the urge to roar.
Keeping her near is the best way to protect her. Eli and Lucas got a good look at her. They know.
Stripes frowned.
Do you need someone on hand to help guard her?
Gray thought about it, but decided against it. She was his responsibility. If she needed guarding, then he'd watch over her. What kind of mate would he be to push her off on someone else? Her, the most precious person in his life.
We're fine.
Stripes nodded and walked out the door. Gray managed to stand there for a few minutes, wondering how to explain to Alyssa that he didn't want her to ever leave his side without sounding like a maniac. Soft footsteps sounded coming down the stairs. He knew she'd woken. He waited for her to enter the kitchen. When she did, she took his breath away. She'd put on one of his t-shirts in lieu of her clothes. The shirt landed mid-thigh, showing off her flesh. Her nipples were clearly delineated through the soft cotton material. He couldn't have picked a better outfit for her himself. There was just one thing he needed to know.
What do you have on under the shirt?
She smiled, a sexy little grin that did all kinds of things to his heart. Nothing. Seven. Liz grinned, slowly making her way to Gray. Clad only in a pair of boxers, she'd forgotten what she was going to say when she first saw him. Dear Lord, please make the boxers disappear didn't sound right. I have a proposition for you, she said, coming closer to him. He leaned on the kitchen island, his gaze dropping to her chest. She was sure her hard nipples were visible through the thin fabric. Instead of going to her room and putting on her own clothes, she decided to go against her instinct for once in her life and seduce the sexy tiger. What he'd said earlier about needing a woman and some kids, she'd thought about it for a while and decided she could help him. Though she tended to be too nice with guys and allowed them to overstay their welcome, she'd come to the conclusion that Gray needed help, and she'd give it. Already he treated her so differently than most of the men she'd been with. He listened, not just nodding and faking it. He actually spoke and asked her about herself. He'd fucked her brain dead. That alone was enough to drop her to her knees and beg him to let her stay as his sex slave for life. Looking at Gray, her stomach flip-flopped and her heart clenched with all kinds of new and strange emotions, nothing she'd ever experienced before. He frowned, his gaze sweeping down to where the shirt ended and then back to her face.
What kind of proposition?
So you know how you said you need some babies? She'd always wanted kids. In fact, her urge to procreate was the reason she'd gone to Mrs. Wilder in the first place. She'd gotten tired of the losers and wanted to find her own long-term happiness.
Yes?
His voice sounded hesitant. She stopped a foot away from him, lifted a hand to his naked chest, and ran a nail down to his belly button. Christ almighty, the man was hot. He sucked his breath in, and her pussy throbbed anew. I can help you out with that.
You want to have my cubs?
Yes, please. She wanted his cubs, bears, puppies, whatever he wanted to give her. With the way he was staring at her and licking his lips, she'd probably settle for as little as a kiss, but she really did want to help him out. Why? She just did. Maybe she was stupid like her mother said, and allowed herself to get into situations where men took advantage of her. But her entire life, she'd always believed in giving people the benefit of the doubt. Right now she felt Gray needed someone to be there for him. She knew she could be that someone. At the same time, she could get her own wishes fulfilled.
Why?
She blinked, not expecting the question. You need someone to do it? We have great chemistry, and I've been wanting children for a while now. He turned away from her, suddenly giving her his back, and she felt a stab of rejection at his movement. He turned around to face her so quickly she was caught off guard.
You do that for me?
She grinned. He sounded so skeptical, like he couldn't believe it. Yes, but you'd have to understand, I'm getting something I want out of this too.
We'll need to take you home, get your stuff, move you here full-time.
He started throwing out a to-do list so long, she wondered what the hell happened. One second he was quiet and thoughtful, and the next he was moving around the island to the kitchen table. He picked up his cell phone and started to dial a number. Gray?
You'll live here with me, obviously.
He continued talking and texting, and then glanced up at her.
My bed is large.
Okay. She figured that by his stating he wanted someone long-term and going to the PDA, that he was also looking for love. Her only hope was that the chemistry and connection they experienced would grow into something more meaningful in time. Already, she wanted to be close to him. It was not just sex, either. There was something about him that tugged at her heart. She wasn't sure if it was the fact he seemed so lonely, or the amount of responsibility he had to carry all on his own. Whatever it was, she wanted to help him carry the burden. Gray, I have a job, she said, hoping he'd slow down the flying text she saw him sending. She was pretty sure they were all about what they'd just decided. She knew this was getting deep for her real fast. Being a romantic at heart, she wanted Gray to be her one. Her heart told her he was, that she'd finally found the love she'd been searching for, but she wasn't stupid. Things had to develop with time and communication. She'd been open and honest with what she wanted with him from the first. He's used few words, but she'd gotten the gist. He had to be searching for a person to love, too, or why else would Mrs. Wilder have sent her to him? She knew what Liz wanted. He stopped and stared at her, as if she'd grown another head.
You don't plan to continue that, do you?
Excuse me? Yeah, that's how I pay my bills. Not that I live paycheck to paycheck or anything. I'm really good at saving money. She grinned. And I suck at shopping for myself, so I never do it.
But you'd have to travel to your office. Anything can happen to you on your way there or back.
She shook her head. You're growing a little paranoid there, kitty man. Don't get your tail in a twist. I'm sure stuff is not as bad as you think. He marched to her, his eyes somber and dark. A grim expression covered his features.
You don't understand. Tigers can be vicious.
She nodded. I'm sure.
No, you really don't understand. When my father first announced he was going to move on from being pride leader of Elder Prime, things went into chaos. Some of the younger, stronger Pride members decided they'd take us out and take over.
What? She gasped, her hand flying to her chest. Her heart pounded hard with fear for him. Who cared that she'd met him a handful of hours back? She'd already become attached to keeping him alive.
My brother was the first target,
he said, his voice dropping to a low, hushed tone. She couldn't stop herself from throwing her arms around him and giving him a hug. The desolation in his eyes dug deep into her heart and plowed holes there. Tell me what happened. He dropped his head on her shoulder and inhaled sharply.
I don't think.
She pulled back and stared into his eyes. Don't think. Just talk to me. If we're going to do this, I need to know you, your life, your family. I need you to open up. He drew her toward the dining table and sat on a chair, pulling her on his lap. This was the first time a man had done that. What would normally be seen as a sexy move was somehow intimate this time. She sat on his lap with his arms tight around her waist.
Dustin was fast with his mouth. He'd gotten one of the women in the Pride pregnant and told everyone he'd sealed his place in line as Pride leader.
She gulped. Her stomach churned, knowing the worst part of the story was coming. What happened? He probably didn't realize how he tightened his hands around her waist, pulling her closer.
We found Sandra dead in their cabin, and Dustin down by the river.
Oh my God. He'd lost a sibling. From the sounds of it, his only one. She didn't think. She threw her arms around his shoulders and pressed her face to his neck. I'm sorry. That's terrible. He pulled her back and stared into her eyes, his gaze filled with pain.
I don't want anything to happen to you.
She'd always believed there was someone out there for her. While she might not have thought that love at first sight existed, she knew there was a connection between her and Gray. Was it love at first sight? If she turned wistful, like she did after a bottle of wine when she was home on a Friday night, she'd start to believe they were soulmates. As it was, she firmly believed whatever they had could be really special. Should they have a baby without using the word love, though? Some people had kids with less commitment and managed it. At least they had chemistry. One of the things Mrs. Wilder had been very specific about was how careful and considerate the Shifters were about their women. That was another plus. Relax, Gray, she said soothingly. He kissed her shoulder and rubbed his cheek on her arm.
I can't, when the idea of anything happening to you makes my animal agitated. I don't like it.
All in all, having a baby with a hot, dedicated, and protecting man didn't sound like a bad idea to her. Her big worry was wondering if he'd ever develop feelings of love for her. She could lie to the world, but not herself. She was already imagining Gray telling her he loved her, which was probably insane, since a day ago she didn't even know him. But who was she to argue with her heart? You never pick who you love, her dad used to tell her when she was a little girl. It's why he tolerated her mother for so many years, and Alyssa never understood it. Her dad had dedicated himself hand and foot to her mother. What did he get in return? Complaints and accusations of being slow to do her bidding. When her mother left her father, it killed him. He died of a broken heart. Liz knew there were good men out there like her dad. That's why she'd kept hoping that she'd find a good guy to be with. Something told her Gray was that guy. So he was a bit on the quiet side. He liked life as a solitary creature, from what she saw, and she noticed he didn't make idle conversation. Even with all that, her heart still told her he was the one for her. Nothing will happen. She said the words with conviction. No, she couldn't see the future, but she'd never been threatened in her life. She and Gray would just have to keep their plans to themselves. We'll just keep our plan between us, and that way nobody will get the urge to slice me into bits. He frowned but nodded.
You're right. That's probably the best thing to do.
She glanced toward the food and then back at him. Think we can eat? He jumped to his feet and almost dropped her.
I'm sorry. I'll get that.
Don't rush on my account, she said, then thought better of it when her stomach growled. On second thought, yeah, rush. I'm starving. Gray laughed. It was music to her ears. He'd gotten upset and worried, and they'd only spoken of her giving him cubs. They hadn't actually done anything yet. No, not really. They'd done quite a lot on his bed. Still, she didn't want him to get all super protective to the point he felt she needed him to watch her 24/7. After dinner, she decided to get dressed in case anyone showed up, since he told her his 2 friends had a tendency of coming and going.
They're my guards,
he explained. Are they your friends?
Yes.
Okay, so I was right, she said, sticking her tongue out at him as he slipped into a pair of sweats.
I have to make a few calls.
She shooed him out of the bedroom. Go. I can wander around and entertain myself. After aimlessly roaming the inside of the cabin, while Gray sat in his office making calls, she'd gotten the lay of the land. She now knew there were 5 bedrooms, a ton of windows, which sort of creeped her out now that it was nighttime, and too much silence. She'd become accustomed to listening to her neighbors yelling on either side of her house. Plus, living on a busy street, she heard cars coming and going at all hours. Her tour of the cabin ended in what she thought was a family room. The giant TV reminded her of the programs she had not watched all week. Flicking through the channels, she found one of her favorites. She settled in to watch, and almost didn't hear when Gray entered the room. He sat down next to her, picked up her feet, and laid them on his lap.
You watch reality TV?
He sounded surprised. Hey, Deadliest Catch is epic. I still miss Captain Phil, and have high hopes the Cornelia Marie will make a comeback. Although Captain Sig is my all-time fave.
Who?
Never mind. She laughed. There was no point in discussing a show he had no idea about. Obviously you don't watch this. So what do you watch on TV? He shrugged.
The news.
Ugh. Are you one of those that all you ever watch is news-related stuff? He chuckled and started rubbing her feet. That was actually really nice.
Yeah, I will watch movies too, though.
She groaned. Boy, he was good with massages. What kind of movies?
Military blow things up kind of stuff.
Oh? She asked, surprised. Military? He nodded.
I was military for a few years, so it is great to figure out what they do wrong in a movie that would never be done in real life.
Sorry, she groaned. I don't watch military stuff. I do love anything with nature. He pressed on the arch of her feet, and she leaned back on the sofa, enjoying every second of his kneading her skin. Men didn't give her soft touches. She'd given an ex a rub-down once when he'd complained of neck pains. Once she'd found out the reason he was getting neck pains was due to peeping on her neighbor through her bathroom window. The massages were dead.
What about your family?
He asked.
How do they feel about you searching for a mate via the PDA?
Her leg muscles tensed at the mention of her family. Her mother didn't know. Heck, she'd love to keep her mother unaware for, say, 20 years before she told her. Especially if they went through the whole having babies idea. If Gray changed his mind at any point, she didn't want to hear about how she'd let another man get away. My mother doesn't know. She feels very strongly that I push men away. Liz still didn't understand how telling her exes she wouldn't tolerate cheating and lying was pushing them away. She wouldn't tolerate cheating and lying was pushing them away. She glanced up from where he massaged her feet to his face.
Do you think she will mind when she finds out? We are agreeing to possible offspring here.
Since she's not the one having the babies, and I don't live in her house, and haven't for a long time, I don't really care what she thinks. So maybe that came out a little harsh, but she was tired of listening to other people try to run her life. Her mother didn't have a man, didn't want a man, and somehow knew better than Liz on what she should be doing to keep a man. All her advice revolved around Liz sucking up the stupid shit men did and letting it slide. Not happening. Eight. Gray left Alyssa alone for the first time in 3 days. He didn't like it. The tiger inside pressed at his skin, searching for a shift, in agitation.
She's fine. Try and focus on what we're doing,
Stripe said.
She's alone. Tinder is with her. She's far from alone. If she can ever get him to shut up, then we might owe her big time. She's great, isn't she?
He said with a smile.
She's fantastic. I'm not sure what she did to make you so receptive lately.
He frowned.
What do you mean?
Stripes chuckled.
You have never done more than grunt a word or two. You don't hold long conversations, and you don't like people. But for the past few days, you've been talking, interacting, and communicating more than you have in the past 10 years.
He didn't realize he'd changed so much since Alyssa's arrival. He didn't know what to think. Her company brought out a new side of him. He enjoyed talking to her. She was funny and smart. Her addiction for reality TV still puzzled him, but he laughed whenever she watched something and yelled at the TV like the characters on the show could hear her.
Do you see anything?
Stripes asked, his gaze focused on the ground. They'd been searching for anything to show that intruders had come near his home.
No, nothing. This doesn't mean they won't come back.
Stripes was right. Eli and Lucas had made it known they wanted him out of the way. One or both wanted the pride, and the only way to get it was to get rid of Gray.
She needs to go home,
he said, once again thinking of Alyssa. Stripes whistled low.
How are you going to handle her being gone?
He wasn't.
I'm going with her.
Stripes laughed.
I had a feeling that would be your answer. You've got it bad. If I didn't know better, I'd say you're in love.
His chest compressed. Love? Nonsense. He'd recognized his mate and needed to protect her. Wanting to spend his time with her did not mean he was in love. Her smile flashed through his mind. He loved when she smiled. It made him happy to know there was joy in her life. That still didn't mean he was in love. Grayson Green did not do love. Gray knew that since he'd been a kid. It had been drilled into him, first by his family, and then by the military. Love was an emotion that could destroy a person.
I don't do love.
He said the words more to himself than Stripes. He didn't need love. He had Alyssa.
Emotions can be messy.
Stripes sighed.
That's true, but love won't hurt you. I think you loving Alyssa would only make you happier. You should think about it. We can't help who we fall in love with, Gray.
Stripes slapped him on the shoulder.
Sometimes we fall and don't even know it.
Not Gray. He was pride leader. He was stronger, tougher. Love made a person weak. It messed with areas of the heart Gray never looked at.
I don't. Just remember that falling in love doesn't make you less of a man,
Stripes said.
It makes you whole.
David? Alyssa asked, confused. What are you doing here? They'd gone into her house to pick up some of her stuff. After requesting last-minute vacation time, she had gotten Gray to take her to her house. She'd inquired about her car, but apparently it needed a lot more work than just a tire replacement. They'd been inside the house for all of 30 seconds when her ex came out of her bedroom. David stared at Gray with a shocked expression. Gray, on the other hand, pushed her behind him, his stance pure dominance.
I need somewhere to stay, Lissy.
She winced. Had he always sounded so whiny? She stared at him through new eyes, wondering what the hell had been wrong with her to allow this man to do whatever he did and not send him packing. I'm sorry, David. You can't stay in my house. We broke up over a year ago. David looked so confused, she almost felt pity for him. Almost. But David had cheated on her repeatedly and blamed his inability to feel adequate with women for his inability to keep his dick in his pants.
Do you want me to wait until your guest leaves?
David asked, trying to see more of her without Gray in the way. He just didn't learn. Looking at David now, after being with Gray, she noticed two things. The first was that David was an immature, pathetic excuse for a man. One who gave women terrible sex, no orgasms, and wasn't faithful. The second was that Gray might not talk to her as much as David had, but at least she knew whatever came out of Gray's lips was real. He didn't sugarcoat. He didn't try to buy her with words. He was rough, tough, and had a great cock. That was more than enough for her. She grabbed Gray's shirt and continued to peek at David around his side. "David, you need to go." "But—" Gray, who had been quiet for the past few minutes, suddenly spoke up. "You need to go. Now," he said, his voice a mere growl. David paled, took a step back, but did not run out the door like she'd expected. Not a good time for him to decide and grow a pair. Considering he'd been such a dick during her entire relationship with him, she wondered why he was pushing things now. "David, you really should go. We've been done for a long time now. I still don't understand what you're doing here."
"Okay, I know we ended things awkwardly."
She shook her head and laughed dryly. "I found you with your dick in my neighbor. Not sure awkward is the right word, but okay."
"That was an accident."
She laughed. The nerve of the man to give her such a sad excuse. "Wow, you need to watch it. Falling and landing on a woman's pussy will definitely get you into trouble. Some women won't be receptive to a stranger's penis up in their business." David flinched, but gave her a pleading look.
"I just need to lay low for a while."
She snorted. "What did you do? Sleep with your boss's wife or something?" He scrunched his face in a grimace.
"I didn't really think he'd find out."
Holy shit. What a fucking idiot. Thank God she'd finally decided to give David the boot before he'd brought that kind of bullshit into her life. "I'm sorry for your stupidity, David, but you should go before Gray decides to take a bite out of your ass." David ran backward to the back door, tripping on his own feet and landing on his ass.
"He's one of those shifters?"
"The really dangerous kind." She nodded, smiling at David's fear. Who knew she was such a sadist? "He's really possessive, too. Doesn't like anyone near me." Gray glanced over his shoulder at her.
"If he isn't gone in the next 30 seconds, I will not hold the tiger back."
The smile fell from her lips. "David, go. I'm trying to help you stay alive. Get out." David ran out of the house with the duffel bag he had set by the door in his hands. She raced to the open entrance to shut the door. When she turned around, she lost the air in her lungs. "Why do you have that look on your face?" He clenched and unclenched his hands at his sides, standing stiffly.
"Why did you wait so long to send him away?"
She blinked. "I'm sorry, can you repeat that?"
"If you didn't want him," he growled, "why did it take you so long to tell him to get out?"
"Hey!" she snapped. "I didn't invite him here."
"He had a key. Clearly you gave it to him."
He threw back, his eyes starting to glow bright gold. "Yes, I did, but we broke up, and I got my key back. That means he must have made a spare without telling me. I don't know why, but I didn't give him permission to." What the hell? When did David showing up out of nowhere become her fault?
"You didn't seem bothered that he was here. In fact, you appeared amused."
He was jealous. She inhaled and let it out slowly. She didn't have much experience with men being jealous. Okay, she didn't have any experience with anyone being jealous. It was new. Refreshing. It was awesome. "I wasn't expecting him. You need to relax there, Tiger. We came to see about getting my clothes. David is not important. I don't want him."
"I disagree. I know what I saw."
He said the words in a low, animalistic growl. Anger flooded her veins. Being sexy and the leader of his pride didn't mean she was going to let him insinuate bullshit. She stomped up to him and poked him in the chest. "You asshole! I might not be in your pride where women throw themselves at you and decide they'll sacrifice their ovaries to bear your children for nothing, but I'm not brainless." She had principles, and she had never been unfaithful in a relationship, which she had a feeling was what he suggested with his short, clipped words and that frown she wanted to smack off his too sexy face.
They don't sacrifice themselves.
His lips quirked in what looked like an attempt at a smile. She rolled her eyes. My bad. They just throw themselves at you and beg for the chance to be your baby mama. Your pride is weird. Most women value a relationship and want to have children with a single man. Do you ever have multiple men get told they're the father of a single child? I bet there's a list of visits to the Maury show with you guys. She snapped.
I don't understand what you're talking about.
She sighed. Ah, well, it was only fun if he understood. She better not mention how full her DVR was of Jerry Springer and the Real Housewives, or he might start to wonder about her. His brow shot down in a furious glare again.
What about you, Alyssa?
She took a step back, not liking the way he said her name. There was too much brightness in his eyes. His gaze roamed her face and focused on her mouth. No way. He wasn't just going to insult her and then switch shit up so they'd have sex. She wasn't that easy. Okay, she was, but not this time. What about me? Still, she couldn't stop the giddiness at knowing he wanted her again. Gray was a very sexual man with magical hands and a tongue she could worship even in her sleep. She continued moving until her back hit the door. He'd marched forward, closing the distance on her. She bit her lip and waited.
What is it you want from me?
He raised a hand to cup her breast over her shirt, and she whimpered. Panting as if she'd run a marathon, she glanced up and met his gaze. Me? I just want you for your cock and tongue. He curled his lip in a small grin.
Sex? You just want me for sex?
He squeezed her tit in his grasp, rolling her hardened nipple between thumb and forefinger. Sex was good, but she wanted so much more from him. Too much. It's why she'd focused on sex, because if she started to tell him how her stomach did flip-flops when he kissed her, or how her legs shook when he looked at her a certain way, she'd be telling him too much. She moaned. I want you for sex, yes, but also for whatever else you want to give me. Love. I want your love. She refused to voice her thoughts. Love would come with time, if he was open to it. She assumed he was, seeing as he'd signed up to find his perfect match. He pressed his body closer, and she loved it. Every time he was this close, she felt his body heat drain her tension away and fill her with a new expectation.
What about your ex?
She frowned. Her mind had already started to focus on the need to get naked, so it took her a few seconds before the words clicked. She shoved at his chest and moved out of his hold. Stomping away from him, she yelled over her shoulder, I told you I don't want him. I told you I didn't invite him. You either believe me the first time I say things, or get the fuck out and forget this. She had reached the sofa when he grabbed her arm and turned her to face him.
Don't run from me,
he said, before tugging her into his arms and slamming his lips over hers. The kiss was bold, filled with an angry spark she didn't normally experience. Was this what people called makeup sex? Technically, they hadn't made up. Holy shit. She was about to have angry sex. That sounded even better than makeup sex. Gray's tongue pushed past her lips and stroked her with command. He showed her with his mouth and tongue he was in charge, that she was his, and she wasn't going to fight it. He tore at her clothes. The sounds of materials ripping filled the air. She gasped when he deepened the kiss. He nibbled and sucked on her lips, then plunged his tongue back into her mouth. His hands weren't soft or careful. He yanked the torn clothes off her. Instead of being outraged or scared, she got more turned on, the wilder he got. Men didn't do that with her. They didn't lose control. They didn't have angry sex with Alyssa. This was surreal. Her own hands weren't idle. She tugged on his shirt, sliding her hand under the tee and feeling the smooth, warm muscles beneath. His abs contracted, and a six-pack formed under her fingertips. She grazed her nails down to the waistband of his jeans, his already erect cock pushed at the zipper, wanting out. She undid his jeans and pushed them down, filling her hand with his velvety hot flesh. Christ, he was hard and big. Both great, since he knew how to do amazing things with his cock. Pulling away from his kiss was difficult, but she really wanted something else in her mouth. She glanced at his bright eyes and licked her lips, panting. "I want you to fuck me," she said bluntly.
"I'm happy to oblige,"
he breathed, his gaze dropping back to her lips.
"Right now."
She shook her head. "I have something else in mind first." The need to feel him in her overwhelmed. Some might think she felt a primitive urge to be taken. All she knew was that the thought of him inside her set her hormones to an explosive blaze. She tugged on his shirt. He peeled it off to reveal the skin she'd been touching earlier. He knocked his boots off, and the jeans along with them. Then he stood in front of her, fully naked with his erection calling her attention. Liquid fire shot from her belly, down to her cunt. Wetness from her pussy slid down her legs. She grabbed his dick and jerked him ever so slowly. Her gaze glided up his body in a drawn-out caress until she reached his eyes. She smiled. He was tense. Need held his muscles stiff. She stroked down his shaft, cupping his balls and massaging them in her hand. "Do you want me to suck your cock, Gray?" He groaned when she put some pressure at the base and squeezed.
"Fuck yes."
She glanced at the sofa to her left and grabbed a throw pillow, dropping it in front of her feet. Then she lowered down to her knees and continued fondling him. "Tell me what you want me to do. Be specific." He moaned and cursed.
"I want my dick in your mouth, surrounded by your pretty lips."
With every word he spoke, it felt as if he grew harder in her grasp. Her pussy was soaked, ready to be fucked. She didn't run from him. She and David had been done for over a year. Maybe talking to him for a while had confused Gray, but she was shocked to find David in her home. Who in their right mind would go to their ex's house and try to get her to let him stay? She raked her nails over his length in a gentle massage. Cupping his balls and fondling them with one hand, she curled her other hand over the base of his cock. A quick glance up, and she caught him breathing hard, his jaw clenched tight, his eyes glowing bright gold. Without looking away, she ran her tongue over him, twirling it in circles at the head and sliding it into her mouth.
"Ah, fuck, that feels good,"
he groaned. She sucked her cheeks in tight and used her saliva to lubricate his dick. Christ, the man was really big and hard. She jerked him with one hand and took more of him into her mouth.
"That's it. Suck me deeper in your hot mouth."
She jerked him harder, pulling back and pressing forward to glide his cock further down her throat.
"Fuck yes, sweetheart. My dick looks so good going in and out of your luscious lips."
He groaned.
"Look at that," he said. "Every time you pull back, I'm soaked with your spit. Suck it harder."
"9." She did. She took him as far as she could and continued to jerk him. Saliva dripped down the side of his cock and her chin. She bobbed her head, sucking, licking, and pulling back. Then she did it again and moaned. Her pussy was wet, and she wanted to get fucked.
"That's a good girl."
He gripped her curls in his fist and thrust faster into her mouth.
"I like the view from up here. You sucking my dick, and your tits bouncing as you do."
Lord, the man had a mouth on him. She slipped a hand between her legs and moaned around his cock. Her pussy ached. She fingered her hard clit. A gentle tap, and she had to stop. Her body shivered from how ready she was.
"This feels fucking amazing,"
he said, pulling her face away from his erection.
"But now I want to fuck."
She licked her lips and stood. "Follow me, Tiger Man." The first door to the right was her bedroom. She turned her lights on dim and went straight to her toy drawer. She got some lube and a vibrator. Things were about to get a whole lot dirtier. Stopping by the bed, she motioned him to her with the crook of her finger. God, he was so fucking hot. The way he looked her up and down like he wanted to eat her sent fire straight to her pussy. He marched up to her and curled an arm around her waist, sliding it down to her ass and squeezing.
"Is this for me?"
She grinned and pushed the vibe and lube into his free hand. "Let's have some fun." He threw the lube and vibe on the bed and kissed her. Raw, hungry, desperate. The kiss was what she'd expect from a man on the verge of losing his control. His tongue swept into her mouth and dominated. With each lick and suck, he showed her she belonged to him. It was an overwhelming, erotic sensation. Her insides felt aflame. Any second now, she'd implode. It didn't happen, though. Instead, he pulled back and met her gaze.
"Are you sure?"
She nodded, crawled on the bed, and got on all fours. Men never gave her wild sex. Until Gray, she never even had a decent orgasm. Now she wanted everything and anything he wanted to try. She threw a glance over her shoulder and smiled. "Fuck me, Gray." A feral grin split his lips. He got to the edge of the bed, curled his arms around her thighs, and pulled her back. She gasped, her upper body dropping down to the blanket. There was no time to react. He pulled her ass cheeks apart and licked up and down the hole. Holy mother of all things naughty. Gray licked between her cheeks and down to her pussy. He rode up her slick curve and back down again and again. "Oh, God," she moaned. He flicked his tongue around her ass. The sensation was one that turned her nipples rock hard. She gasped for air, whimpering at the delectable feelings of being consumed. Gray thrust his tongue into her pussy and fucked her with it. She groaned, gripping her sheet, grateful he held her up. Her legs shook. She could barely keep herself on her knees.
"Look at your pretty little asshole,"
Gray whispered.
"Can I fuck it?"
She gulped. "Yes."
"That's what I like to hear."
Cool lube slid down the crack of her ass, traveling south until he stopped it and worked his fingers into her dark hole.
"Fuck, you're squeezing my fingers hard. I want you to do that to my dick when I'm inside you,"
he said, pushing a second finger in and out of her ass. She relaxed her body, pushing out at the invasive fingers and moaning. He stretched her ass muscles and thrust deep into her. The bite of pain and pleasure combined was new and incredibly erotic. "Gray."
"That's it, baby. Take my fingers deep."
She slid down on the bed, and Gray stopped. He flipped her over onto her back. She lay at the edge, with Gray standing by her feet, working her ass with one hand. He grabbed the vibrator with his free hand and turned it on. She choked out a moan when the cool rod slipped into her pussy, while he continued to finger-fuck her ass. Her gaze met his, and her hands moved to tweak at her nipples. Adding a new kind of pain to the mix shot her pleasure level out of orbit.
"Oh, you like that. I know you do,"
he said, his voice low and rough. She nodded and groaned.
"You'll like it more when I'm fucking you,"
he promised with the hint of a growl.
"I'm going to shove my dick inside you and come deep in your ass."
The vibe wasn't on one of the higher speeds, so all it did was torture her with a low buzz in her pussy. Gray spread her legs wider, pushing her knees to her chest.
"That's my girl. Open wide for me."
She held her legs close to her chest and watched, her gaze focused on him and the way he greased his cock with the lube, stroking up and down and turning it shiny with the liquid. Her breath caught when he hit the next speed on the vibe and pressed the head of his cock at the entrance to her ass. She bit her lip and whimpered at the burning sensation. He inched his way in so slowly she almost went cross-eyed from the painful pleasure. "Gray," she gasped. Not that she could say any more. Her mind wasn't working. She didn't even know words were possible at this point.
"Hang on."
He bit the words out through clenched teeth, pushing and pulling back in slow seesaw movements until he was balls deep in her ass. The speed on the vibrator increased again. He pulled back, almost leaving her body before pushing deep. The feeling of fullness was one she might never get used to. The vibrator wasn't small. She wondered how it felt for him to feel it buzzing inside her. There wasn't a chance to ask. His thrusts increased in speed, as did the vibe. He kept her legs in place by holding her feet and pushing them to her chest. That allowed her to tug at her nipple with one hand and finger her clit with the other. She moaned, her muscles tightened, and a ball of fire expanded at her core.
"Ah, that's it. Squeeze my dick with your tight ass."
He grunted and cursed. "I need," she breathed. Her legs shook profusely. His drives into her propelled the vibe deeper. He pushed her finger away from her clit and tapped at the nerve bundle. The small hit set her soaring. "Gray!" she screamed. The world stopped moving while a wave of absolute bliss rushed through her body. She was faintly aware of Gray's body tensing and his cock pulsing in her ass as he came. He roared through his release and came for what felt like a long time in short, jerky spurts. He released her legs and pulled the toy out of her slowly. She gasped for breath, her body shaking like a giant lump of jelly. Gray went to her bathroom and returned with a wet washcloth to clean her. When he left a second time, she crawled up the bed, dropped her head on a pillow, and tried to wait until her brain and body returned to working order. A few moments later, he returned and joined her on the bed. He curled his body around her, pulling her close and holding her around the waist. Her back ended up plastered to his front, with his semi-hard cock nestled between her ass cheeks. She never had sex like this. So wild, so dirty, so fucking amazing. Gray was a man unlike any she'd ever been with. He took her pleasure seriously. She loved that, loved how good he was about learning her body and bringing her to the heights of ecstasy. Gray was an all-around alpha male. Strong, dedicated, passionate. She didn't think he even realized that he automatically put her needs before his own. David never had. None of her exes had. In order for her to get some kind of hot sex, she had to give it to herself. Now there was Gray, the big, bad, sexy tiger she loved. Waking up in Gray's bed had its perks. He appeared to never grow tired of her or her body. After so many days, he still woke her up in a most delectable way. He'd roam his hands down her body, sliding them between her legs and dipping into her slick folds.
"I never tire of how wet you get."
She grinned, her eyes closed. "I am sure we can figure out how to keep that going." She tried to snuggle closer into him, but he flipped over on top of her. She blinked sleepy eyes open and stared into his bright gaze. "You're much too awake for this ungodly hour. What is it, like 10? A smile broke over his lips. It turned his face from sexy serious to holy wet panties gorgeous.
"I have somewhere I want to take you."
This was interesting. He'd been sort of paranoid for the past few days, and now he seemed calm. She liked seeing him like this. As long as there isn't any running, we can go wherever you want. He laughed, dropped his head, and kissed her soundly.
Why no running?
She blew a raspberry. I don't run. Ever. His eyes widened.
Never?
Nope. So you might as well get used to the idea. He stood, helped her off the bed, and led her to the big bathroom attached to his master suite.
I don't think I could ever not run.
Well, you have a massive tiger inside you. I don't. She slapped his ass and giggled when he stared at her over his shoulder. Sorry, it was calling my name.
You're so cute.
He laughed. That was a first, too. She wondered what got into him. It didn't matter, because she really liked him like this. She was glad she'd taken time off her job to spend with Gray. Maybe that had been a step too far, but she wasn't a quitter. Being with him the past few days had been better than any time she'd spent with any man in the past. She didn't even care that he got growly and silent at times when she wanted to talk, or often left to run the tiger out in the woods. He wasn't a regular man, and she could understand his need for space. What she really loved was that he didn't make her feel uncomfortable that she was in his space. Instead, he tried to make her feel welcome. While flipping through the channels, she'd found he'd started to DVR her favorite shows, without her asking him to. He'd gotten Tinder to go to town a few times and pick up her favorite cookies and cakes, all to please her. He'd yet to use love words, but she knew it was soon. She wasn't in a rush. She knew how she felt, though. Clammy hands, her increased heartbeat, and the overwhelming happiness at being near him were all signs she was more emotionally invested than she cared to think about. The night he'd kissed her softly in the moonlight and told her she was the one he wanted forever had burned in her brain as one of the most romantic memories ever. She was in love. Who cared that it was soon, or with a man she was still getting to know? You don't control your feelings or who you fall in love with, her father had said. He'd been right. All right, take me wherever you want. She sighed. But feed me first. He helped her into the shower, under the warm spray of multiple shower heads.
Have I starved you so far?
Nope. One thing she couldn't argue with was how good he was at making sure she was always comfortable. She really loved that about Gray. For a man who didn't like people, he sure didn't seem to mind being around her. No, but be warned. If you ever change and I start to go hungry, you'll be in deep trouble. I might run away, and then what will you do? She curled her arms around his neck and kissed his wet chest.
I'll just have to cuff you to my bed and make sure you never go anywhere.
She laughed at the irony of his words. I can undo cuffs, Tiger Man. Now what? He frowned, the water sluicing down his face to make his body slippery.
You can undo handcuffs?
She nodded. Yeah, I know it's weird, but I learned to pick locks when I was a kid. My dad was a master locksmith. He taught me how. Gray blinked.
Any lock?
She grinned at his stunned expression. Most people didn't see her as a lockpicker. She was much too law-abiding. Any lock. My dad was the best.
I guess I'll use zip ties then,
he said. She burst into laughter and shook her head. You're bad.
And you.
He slid his hands down to cup her ass.
Are taking too long and distracting me when I have somewhere I want to take you.
It was a garden by the river. She couldn't take her gaze off it. The patch of grass he'd chosen was surrounded by wildflowers and a stream that veered off the river. Her breath caught at the beauty of the spot. She figured she had the world's stupidest grin on her face, and she couldn't make it go away.
"I like to come here when I'm stressed or need to be alone," he said softly.
She squeezed his hand in hers. He was sharing his favorite spot. This was big in the way of communication. She flung her arms around his waist and smiled. "You got some brownie points. This place is gorgeous." His laughter warmed her heart.
"I never know what's going to come out of your mouth."
She winked at him and pouted. "How about we go back to the cabin and—" He hugged her tight.
"And?"
"Get some food. I'm starving." He dropped a kiss on the top of her head and sighed.
"You see what I mean?"
"I have no idea what you're talking about. Now let's go eat." She tugged him back to the cabin. "Next time we'll bring a picnic, and I can watch you laze around in your tiger body." The image of pancakes and coffee made her jerk at his hand harder. "Come on, you big lazy tiger. Move your ass." She pulled him all the way to the cabin. When they neared the back door, she rushed inside, ready to scavenge for food. Gray was a few steps behind her. "Hurry up!" She removed a pin from her hair. The damn thing just wouldn't hold back the crazy mess of curls. She still had it in her hand when all hell broke loose. Gray entered the kitchen, and the smile he'd had since she'd woken up that morning dropped from his face. She opened her mouth to ask what was wrong, but was left speechless. He broke out of his skin and clothes in a change so fast she would have missed it had she blinked. In a heartbeat, she had a massive tiger in front of her. He roared loud, so loud her heart felt like it stopped in her chest. Buzz. Something broke through the air and hit Gray. He reared back, standing on his hind legs to cover her. Another zip, and something else hit him. She glanced around but saw no one. Then, when Gray roared again, a third buzz sounded. Everything happened so fast. Within the space of 30 seconds, she'd been left standing there, watching Gray roar and slam to the floor. She dropped down to her knees, wondering what the hell she could do. The two guys she'd seen before, Eli and Lucas, appeared after a second. Lucas had a dart gun pointed at Gray, and Eli had a real gun pointed at her.
"Don't try anything and we won't have to kill you. Right now."
She swallowed back the vial that hit her throat. Poor Gray. She needed to help him. She nodded and curled her shoulders into her chest to appear weak and scared.
"Let's take them to the other room and chain him up,"
Lucas said.
"What about her?"
Eli asked. Lucas threw her a hate-filled glare.
"She's human. She couldn't break through anything. Pathetic weaklings."
She ignored his evil words and instead slipped her hairpin into the back pocket of her capri pants.
"I have handcuffs,"
Eli grinned.
"I've been carrying them around to see if I can get my maid interested in trying, but she keeps laughing in my face." "That's because you're a fucking idiot,"
Lucas growled.
"Bring one of the kitchen chairs to the living room and cuff her to it. I'll get the chain for Gray." "Then what?"
Eli asked.
"I don't fucking know. It's not like we started out with a plan."
Eli winced.
"If we kill Gray, you can challenge for prime leader."
Lucas nodded.
"I know, but there are others stronger than me that will want to take over."
Eli motioned for her to walk ahead of him while he pointed the gun with one hand and carried a chair with the other. In the living room, he put the chair by the fireplace.
"Sit!"
She sat down and kept her arms behind her, hoping he wouldn't make it harder for her, and put them over the chair. Eli was too preoccupied watching Lucas drag a massive, passed-out Gray into the living room to pay her much attention. He cuffed her hand to one of the wooden bars on the chair.
"Fucking hell,"
Lucas groaned.
"Why did I shoot him when he was shifted? I tried to hit him the moment he entered, but he was too fast."
Gray must have realized right away they were in the cabin and shifted before Lucas shot the first dart. Eli turned to glance at her.
"You stay right there, little human. Don't make me kill you right now." "Get the chain,"
Lucas ordered. Lucas continued to struggle to drag the giant tiger into the living room while Eli was gone. "Why are you doing this?" The question slipped out before she had a chance to stop it. Lucas huffed and stopped, dropping the tiger's head on the floor with a loud thump.
"Why?"
She nodded and stared at him, her free hand reaching into her back pocket to make sure she hadn't lost the pin. Awesome. It was still there.
"This is the only way we can have a shot at Prime Leader. With Gray out of the way, things will be easier."
She frowned and bit back the urge to call him a coward.
"I know what you're thinking,"
he said.
"Why kill Gray? Because he's a danger. He's too strong to be stopped."
He pointed at the tiger.
"Look at him. He's only dozing on a dosage of a tranquilizer that should have killed him. Is he dead? No."
He kicked the tiger with enough force that she had to clench her teeth to stop from saying something that would get her into more trouble. "You said there are others that can challenge for Prime Leader once Gray is out of the way." Lucas bent down and grabbed clumps of the tiger's fur and pulled him again. He dragged Gray until he reached her side. Then he let go of the tiger and leaned on another chair.
"There are others. We might have to get rid of them until I'm the most likely to win in a challenge for Prime Leader."
What a fucking loser. There were obviously pathetic excuses for men in the shifter world, too. Eli returned, dragging a massive chain. They twined it around the tiger, along with a thinner chain to keep him bound in case he tried to shift. The chain appeared to be really tight around his neck and middle. Lucas turned to Eli.
"I'm going to go get something to try and get rid of him. Those darts knocked him out, but he's still alive. I need something stronger."
Eli nodded.
"I'll watch him."
Lucas rushed toward the kitchen, leaving her alone with Eli. Eli sat on the sofa and started channel surfing.
"There's never anything to watch."
"Have you tried watching reality shows?" she mumbled, reaching into her pocket to pull the pin out.
"What are those?"
Eli said, flicking through the TV stations. "Oh, they're great. If you check out the DVR, I have some you might like recorded on there." Having dealt with the idiots she'd had relationships with, she knew not to underestimate a man and make him feel stupid. "Try Jerry," she suggested. A few seconds later, an episode of multiple strippers fighting for one man came on the screen, and Eli was absorbed in the women dancing on the pole to show why they were better than the other girl.
"Thanks. For a human, you're not so bad,"
Eli said, glancing at her and away from the TV for a second.
"We still have to kill you. You understand."
She gave him a humorless smile. "Of course." Gray huffed and shook against the chain. She had to hurry, or he'd wake fully and make it harder for her to open his locks. Eli was once again engrossed in the show, and she had just gotten her cuff off without making a sound. She was lucky Eli's back was turned mostly away from her. It allowed her to check on him every few seconds, while she leaned down and tried to open Gray's lock. She watched Eli and jiggled the pin into the first lock, holding the chain around Gray. The chain rattled. She held her breath and glanced up. Eli shifted positions in his seat, but leaned forward to continue watching the women showing their boobs. She hurried to the second lock and was glad it was of the same type as the first. Easy peasy. Lock number 2 was undone. Now to do the last one. Thankfully, they hadn't used anything too difficult. Once she was done unlocking them, she removed the locks and put them under the cushion of the chair next to hers. The dart gun was on the sofa next to Eli, and she couldn't reach it without getting caught. She sat up on her seat. Gray needed to wake up soon, or they'd be out of time. She removed her shoe and rubbed the big tiger with her foot. "Wake up, Gray."
"He can't hear ya,"
Eli said.
"He's out like a light. Those were some powerful tranks."
She swallowed hard and shoved the tiger harder with her foot, making the chain rattle. His tail moved. Thank God. She wiggled her foot between the chains and pushed him again.
"I'm back,"
Lucas yelled from the kitchen entrance. She couldn't wait any longer. Lucas put something down on the kitchen table and started walking toward them. She prayed Gray would wake up with what she was about to do, because if not, they were both dead. Her heart hammered so hard, she thought she might pass out and throw up. With a hard wiggle, she made her chair fall sideways, on top of the tiger. She kicked him hard on his side and whispered in his ear, "Wake up! I need you!"
"Hey!"
Eli yelled, coming toward her after she fell.
"I told you! You won't be getting out of those cuffs!"
Lucas rushed forward. He picked both her and the chair up.
"Do that again, and I'll shoot you myself. I have no problems killing you. Do you understand?"
That's what did it. A loud roar broke through the living room. Chains rattled, and the massive tiger next to her jumped to his feet. It was like he'd never been out. He didn't waste any time. He grabbed the closest one, Lucas, and bit into his leg.
"Ah!"
Lucas screamed and pushed the giant tiger off him to no avail.
"Hang on, Lucas!"
Eli yelled, and tried to head for the sofa, where the dart gun was located. It was her turn to do something. Instinct drove her actions. She grabbed a poker from the fireplace on the other side of her chair and hit Eli over the back of his head before he got a chance to reach the dart gun. He turned around with a growl, his eyes glowing gold. Fuck. Shit. Fuck. He was going to shift. She couldn't even think about what the hell was going on with Gray and Lucas when this one looked ready to kill her. She hit him with the poker again. He started bleeding profusely. Another hit, and she got him in the neck. He tried to shift. His muscles contorted, but she hit him again. And again. Blood sprayed over her. The neck area appeared to be his most vulnerable. She went for it again and again. Not thinking, just doing. Her stomach revolted at the sight of so much blood, especially since a lot of it was on her. Gray and Lucas were fighting behind her. She could hear the sound of roars and furniture breaking. Her arms ached, and she wanted to drop the poker, but as long as Eli kept moving, she kept slamming it down on him. She hit him one final time, and he stopped moving. There was a massive gaping wound on his neck from when the poker stuck through the flesh and pulled back. She didn't stare at it for long, but turned to Gray and Lucas. Gray had Lucas on the floor. He was digging into his chest with his paws. There was blood everywhere. On the tiger. It was clear Lucas was dead, but the tiger didn't stop chewing on his arm or pawing at his neck and chest. She winced and reined in the urge to vomit. "Gray?" The tiger stopped. He dropped the arm he'd been chewing on and moved closer to her. She dropped down on a sofa chair and watched him. His golden eyes were those of a predator, yet she wasn't afraid. Gray was in there. She only hoped he knew how to control the animal, that he knew it was her sitting there in front of him. She held out a shaking hand, palm up and open. The tiger sniffed at her hand and pushed his massive head into it. She slid her fingers into the thick, furry coat and sighed. What the hell had she gotten herself into? Love. The tiger glanced at her and sat down by her feet. He leaned forward, putting his head on her lap. She stroked his blood-splattered fur and hoped that love was worth this amount of strange. Gray shifted to his human body a few minutes later. He didn't speak, and neither did she. He called his guards to come clean up his house. A short time later, the cabin was surrounded, but only Tinder and Stripes came inside.
"We're not really shocked they showed up to attack you, Gray,"
Stripes said, dragging what was left of Lucas through the kitchen exit.
"There had been a rumor about getting rid of you, but they had mentioned waiting for Alyssa to be gone,"
Tinder added. Great. She'd been the only reason they hadn't tried to kill Gray sooner.
"It doesn't matter. Anyone else who wants to challenge is welcome to do so. But in order to get the pride, they'll have to follow our rules."
Tinder nodded.
"The elders have spoken and said that unless the challenge is openly stated in front of them, your death does not mean your family loses the pride leader position. It will just go to the next one of your appointment."
Stripes returned at that moment.
"Yes, they're saying from now on you'll have to make a list of backups, in case something happens to you, and that list will be sealed and guarded. No one can get to it. It would only be opened if something happened to you. If for whatever reason the seal is broken, and you're alive, they'd request a new list from you."
Gray nodded. Liz swallowed hard, feeling cold and shaky all of a sudden.
"Do you all mind not talking about Gray dying right now?" "Sorry,"
Tinder and Stripes apologized.
"Let's get you cleaned up, darling."
He carried her up to the shower, while the lower level was scrubbed. Then he took her to bed once they'd showered. There was no need for words. He made love to her like a man starved, a man who needed her. She needed him as well. She'd come to the conclusion she needed him a lot more than she'd realized. She loved him. "11. Alyssa rushed to open the door after the third knock. Gray had installed a security system so she could see who was nearby while watching TV. He wasn't home, but she recognized the woman on the screen and rushed to open the door. "Hi!" She smiled at the young woman. "You're Catherine from the auto shop, right? Or is it Kat? Got my car fixed?" Catherine nodded. "Either is fine. I came to bring you your keys." Liz took them from her and opened the door wider. "Thank you. Would you like to come in?" Catherine glanced at the inside and shook her head. "No, I should go." She turned on her heel and stopped. Then she glanced at Liz again. "I admit, I'm surprised." "At what?" she asked, feeling out of the loop. "I was always under the impression human women wanted love out of a relationship. But from what I've heard, you're perfect for Gray because you don't." She frowned. "Excuse me?" Catherine shrugged. "I guess I had my facts wrong. Good luck with Gray. He's a great leader." Liz watched Catherine leave with concern. She was still standing by the door when Tinder arrived. He was supposed to go grab some of her belongings from her house. Gray didn't like the idea of her going back and finding David there again.
"Ready to go?"
"Yes." She slipped out of the house and into his truck quietly. Her thoughts were a jumbled mess. Why would Catherine say that? She never told anyone she didn't want love. In fact, she'd specifically told Gray that she did. She waited until they were almost at her house before she finally said something. "Tinder, may I ask you a question?" He glanced at her quickly before looking back at the road.
"Of course, Alyssa. Whatever you need, I will help."
She smiled. He'd become a good friend the past few weeks. Why did Catherine say I didn't want love and was therefore okay for Gray? Tinder squeezed the steering wheel and gave her an apologetic smile.
She doesn't know what she's talking about.
She knew he was lying. How? She had no clue. But she knew. "Tell me, please."
Everyone knows Gray doesn't believe in love. Hell, he didn't even sign himself up for the PDA. Stripes did.
"What?" She froze in place. "You mean he didn't really want to be matched with anyone?" Tinder sighed.
"No, he didn't. But you both worked it out where he could have what he needed, and you don't have crazy expectations of love."
She didn't? So what the hell was the point of everything they'd agreed to? Why was she living with Gray and allowing her cats to fall in love with him as much as she had? There was only one person who could tell her what the hell had been on the request for Gray's match. Mrs. Wilder. "Forget going to my house," she said, her throat closing up on her. "We need to make a quick stop somewhere else." Something was wrong. He didn't know what, but he had a feeling it was Alyssa.
"What's up?"
Stripes asked from the passenger side.
"I need to go to Alyssa."
Stripes pulled out his phone.
"Where are you?"
He'd called Tinder. A few moments later, he hung up.
"They went to Jerry Wilder's place." "Did he say if Alyssa's okay?"
His gut twisted in knots. Something was definitely wrong. He sensed her distress even from this far apart.
She's not. She's very upset, and he says he can't tell us because he's been threatened to be neutered if he does.
He floored it, breaking speed limits and not giving a fuck. He had to get to her and find out what was wrong. When he arrived at Jerry Wilder's apartment, an older woman with a serious frown opened the door. "Let me guess, you're the kitty?" Kitty? He'd been called a lot of things in his time, but Kitty was certainly not one of them.
"I'm Grayson Green. Are you Mrs. Wilder?"
"Jerry, please. And yes, I am." She glanced up and down his body before moving to stare openly at Stripes. "Oh, you're a fine one."
"Excuse me, Jerry, but I'm looking for Alyssa."
She nodded. "I know that, but she's pissed at you right now." He frowned.
"Can you tell me why?"
He hadn't said or done anything for Alyssa to be angry. They'd been getting along great. He never wanted to be around anyone like he did her. She was refreshing and fun. She didn't try to tell him what to do or suggest he change anything about himself. She just let him be. "Did you or did you not sign up for my services?" Jerry snapped, her eyes glowing gold.
"No, he didn't."
Stripes grabbed Jerry's hand and smiled.
"I did on his behalf."
Jerry moved close in front of Stripes and yanked her hand out of his grasp. Stripes turned to Gray and shrugged. Clearly the older woman wasn't in the mood for Stripes to try and smooth things over. Gray opened his mouth to say something when suddenly Jerry slapped the side of Stripes' head. "Do either of you pussies understand what a matchmaking site is for?" She'd called them pussies. Gray had a hard time wrapping his mind around that, and the fact she'd smacked Stripes upside his head without adding whatever was going on with Alyssa. "It," she breathed out slowly, "is to find love, the right person to be with." He nodded, feeling almost as if he didn't. He'd be in even bigger trouble with the older woman. "So why did Alyssa come here and say you were not looking for love?" Jerry folded her arms over her chest and raised a brow high. "Explain that one to me, hairball." He bit back the urge to tell her to quit calling him names.
"I don't do love. Everyone in my pride knows that."
Jerry narrowed her eyes. "Well, it would have been nice if it was put on your application. Now I have a woman who's in love with you and is distressed because she thinks you don't love her back and never will." Jerry's gaze traveled back and forth between him and Stripes. "I swear to God, I need to hire an assistant before I lose my mind and bite someone's head off when shit like this happens."
"She's wrong,"
he said. Jerry stopped and stared at him. "Oh?"
"She's wrong. It's not what she thinks."
He nodded.
"I know it looks bad, but let me talk to her."
"I don't know. She's really angry right now." She gave him a once-over again. "I'd promised her love, marriage, and children." He nodded.
"Let me talk to her. I can fix it."
She gazed deep into his eyes and smiled. "Come on in." She pushed her front door open and let them in. "I'm going to need to keep a bottle of vodka handy for these kinds of visits." Gray walked into the large apartment and immediately saw Alyssa standing by a window. She turned to look at him with so much sadness, his heart shattered. "Why didn't you tell me you didn't do love?" she asked. "I told you from the beginning what I wanted." He cleared his throat, ignored his two guards and the old woman, and marched to Alyssa's side.
"I wanted you from the moment I saw you,"
he admitted. "Want is not love." She turned to glance out the window again. "You let me believe we could have something, that in time you might grow to love me."
"Alyssa."
"No! I opened myself up to you from the moment you held my hand and walked me around the woods. I nurtured my feelings and let them grow to the point I couldn't control how much I felt for you." She turned back to him, eyes filled with tears. "How much I loved you." He swallowed hard. The tiger in him hurt seeing her so upset.
I'm sorry.
She shook her head. I refuse to be some woman you have sex with. I deserve more. I deserve to be loved.
You're right.
I'm glad you feel that way. I've decided our agreement will not work. You can just ship my stuff, and I'll send someone to get my car. His lungs tightened. A dull throbbing took hold of his chest at the thought of her not being with him anymore. She was his, and nothing was going to change that.
I'm sorry. Our agreement can't be broken.
She wiped at the tears racing down her cheeks. Why not? He had to do it. He had to tell her or lose her.
2 things. The first is, I can't live without you.
She gasped. How can you say that? You know how hard this is right now. Why not let me go? He closed the distance between them.
I can't let you go.
He took a deep breath and finally said the words living inside his heart.
Because I love you.
You don't do love. He held her by her arms and turned her to face him. The tears in her eyes were like daggers to his heart.
I may not do love, but it doesn't mean I control my emotions.
He lifted a hand and cupped her jaw.
From the first time I saw you, I decided to label my feelings as lust and need.
Her bottom lip trembled, punching new agony through his body.
The truth was that what I felt was deeper, stronger, better than anything I'd ever felt for anyone in my life.
He couldn't take it. He pulled her into his arms and hugged her.
I'm so sorry, my love. I do love you. Please don't cry. It hurts to see you this way.
I'm not crying. I never cry. She sniffled and sobbed.
Right, okay. What can I do to help you stop not crying?
He asked, the human side and the tiger both beyond agitated.
I was scared to acknowledge my feelings as love.
She inhaled sharply. A fresh wave of tears dropped down her cheeks. You don't want to love me.
It's not that I don't want to love you. I'm not used to feeling so many things for one person.
He sighed, wishing he had the right words to explain himself. Always the loner and quiet, he never had to explain his feelings like he did at that moment. You don't choose who you love, she murmured. He pulled back and met her gaze. There was so much pain there, sadness.
I was afraid to admit how I felt.
She sniffled and frowned. Why?
I didn't want to be at the mercy of my feelings. You could hurt me, and that wasn't something I was used to.
She shook her head and glanced down at his chest. I never hurt you. I love you.
I love you too, Alyssa. Please give me a chance to prove it to you. Come home with me. I won't hold back anymore.
Alyssa had never been so torn in her life. She could give Gray a chance at proving he really did love her, or she could move on. She had promised herself she wouldn't let men take her for a fool anymore, but her heart broke at the thought of not being with Gray. He'd been the first man to accept her exactly as she was, curvy, silly, and obsessed with her cats. Sex with Gray had opened a new door to a passion she'd never experienced before. He truly wanted her as she was. Okay, she blurted before she changed her mind. I'll give you another chance on one condition.
Anything.
Needing your space is fine, but pushing me away is not. Emotional distance creates pain, and I won't tolerate it. If you mean what you're saying, you will open up to me. He nodded and enveloped her in a tight hug again. She sighed, no longer as upset as when she'd first walked in. So what's the second thing? Jerry asked, intruding in the moment. I gotta say, I've been dying to hear the second part to that speech. She smiled at Alyssa. I told you I'd find you the right man. Sometimes I need to pull them by the tail, but I found him. Alyssa smiled and gazed up at him. What is the second thing?
You're carrying my cubs.
She gasped, pushed away from him and felt her belly. "I'm pregnant?" He nodded, a slight frown marring his brow.
"You're not angry, are you?"
She might be a little scared, but... Wait. Did you say cubs? As in plural? Jerry laughed. "Congratulations! This'll be the most interesting 5 months of your life." 5 months? She rubbed a hand on her temple. "This is a little much to take in." He helped her sit down and hugged her to his side.
"I'll do whatever you need. I promise."
"Can you tell me what you meant when you said cubs?" She hoped he didn't mean there were literal cubs growing in her womb. That would be too weird even for her.
"Babies. Sorry, not actual tigers."
She breathed a shaky sigh of relief. "Okay, that I can handle. Now, how many are we talking about?" She'd never held more than one baby. Thinking of multiples started to make her lightheaded.
3.
3? 3? Holy shit. That was 2 more babies than she was sure she could handle at a time. She glanced at Gray and couldn't hold back the love she felt for him. He looked scared, as if she'd be upset because she was carrying multiples. "I guess we better get to work on that nursery," she said, and threw her arms around his neck.
"God, I love you."
She grinned, inhaling the scent she now recognized as uniquely him. "I love you too." Epilogue. "I swear, Geraldine, I don't understand these boys." Jerry dropped some sugar into her tea and winced. "If you call me Geraldine one more time, I will start telling random people on the street your real age." Her friend Margaret laughed. "Sorry, Jerry. You know it's all in love." Yeah. So how is your boy and his beta? Did they find a mate yet?" Margaret growled and slammed her teacup on the saucer. "No, those little mutts. I swear I can't believe I birthed one of them. How is it that they can't find a woman who wants 2 very hot and wonderful men? Granted, they are pig-headed, but they're great." "So what's the problem?" Jerry asked, interested. "Seems they're just not finding the right woman to complete their triad." Margaret sighed. "How did your nephew do it?" Jerry shrugged. "I helped." Margaret lifted her brows in interest. "Really?" "Oh, yes. Now they're one of the strongest triads in the North." Margaret tapped her chin. "I have an idea." Jerry nodded. "I like ideas." "It could get us in trouble." Jerry laughed. "Even better." The end. This has been Her Purrfect Match, Paranormal Dating Agency, Book 3, written by Millie Taiden, narrated by Lauren Sweet. Copyright, Lifetime, by Millie Taiden. Production copyright, 2015, by Millie Taiden.